Chapter 325. With so many people, their restaurant didn't have such a large private room. The waiter hurriedly said, "Then let's go to the backyard. I'll get someone to tidy it up first." Then he ran off to tidy up the backyard. The backyard was quite large. Several waiters brought over a large round table and some stools. After they sat down around the large round table, the waiter came over to make tea before going to find the lady boss. The lady boss here is very good at cooking casseroles and all kinds of meat dishes. She's from the Northeast, so her alcohol tolerance is quite high. After Zhu Machin sat down, he said, "Basically, whenever I come back from a mission, I come here to eat a meal. I never get tired of it." "Boss, are you really not trying to hide how stingy you are?" Xiao Tao looked at Zhu Machin suspiciously. Zhu Machin's skin was quite thick, and he had no intention of replying. It was obvious that he was prepared to skip this topic. The lady boss quickly came over. The lady boss looked to be around 34 or 35 years old. She was a charming middle-aged woman, and her enchanting eyes made her seem especially sexy. "Oh, I was wondering who it was. So it's Captain Zhu. How do you have time to come here?" The lady boss seemed to be very familiar with Zhu Machin. She didn't hold back when she teased him. "2 days ago, someone told me that he was incredibly busy." Zhu Machin hurriedly said, "He was busy 2 days ago, but hasn't he already been busy?" The lady boss glanced at him disdainfully, then asked, "What do you want to eat this time?" Zhu Machin naturally let Xiaoqing order. He was the one who was treating, and Xiaoqing was too embarrassed to order all of his favorite dishes. Thus, after ordering 2 dishes, she didn't order anything else. Zhu Machin ordered a few more dishes, then said, "Don't forget to order a pot of your specialty fish head tofu soup." Only then did the lady boss wave her hand and take the menu to cook. After the lady boss left, there was no one else around. The few of them began to chat. "The red smoke that woman threw out this time can't be underestimated. I just don't know how much of this medicine Wu Booping has, or if he has any other types of medicine. Everyone has seen that the effects of this medicine should be quite good. If it's not some kind of heaven-defying poison, it should be quite suitable for us," Zhu Machin analyzed. None of the people present were fools. They had already thought it through. Wu Booping definitely had more than one type, not to mention the quantity. For example, although the effects of the red smoke were unclear, Xiaoqing knew that it was indeed very powerful to be able to make her vines almost wither the moment they came into contact with it. "What I'm most worried about is their experiments," Xiaoqing said with a heavy expression. It was fine if it was an ordinary experiment, but if they used humans to test the effect, it was equivalent to a human experiment. Chemical weapons were very lethal, but their impact on the environment was very serious. What's more, they could even spread diseases like plagues. Just like some of the things that Japan researched in the past. In fact, Japan didn't stop researching these things during peacetime. Previously, Xiaoqing's army had bombed a certain type of research institute. Xiaoqing had also seen with her own eyes that the people who were poisoned as experimental subjects were miserable beyond words. Now that it was the end of the world, whether it was morality or law, those restrictions were very weak. It was inevitable that some people would do unforgivable things. Xiaoqing couldn't help but be a little worried. They shouldn't dare to commit a crime and conduct such an experiment. However, they should have developed a lot of common chemical weapons. That's why they had the confidence to plot against me. Zhu Machin rubbed his chin and said lazily, "Wu Booping is very ambitious and has no conscience. If he continues to develop like this, it's not certain whether he can do such a thing." Chapter 326. It's better to be on guard. Xiaoqing nodded, then said, "My vines cut off a bit of that red mist. Do you want to take it back and study it?" "Of course. Know yourself and know your enemy, and you'll never be defeated," Zhu Machin said in surprise. Zhu Machin exclaimed in pleasant surprise. Xiaoqing stretched out her hand, and a withered vine appeared in her palm. "It's hollow. The mist is inside." After saying that, Xiaoqing threw the vine to Zhu Machin. Naturally, she also kept some for herself. When she went back, she would let Yan Qiyu study its composition. While the group was chatting, the lady boss began to serve the dishes. The dishes she made were already very good in terms of taste. Moreover, they looked, smelled, and looked very appetizing at first glance. 2 cold dishes. Everyone eat first. The hot dishes will be served soon. The waiter was also a tactful person. After serving the dishes, he left. The rest of the group continued to guess. Xiaoqing was actually quite curious. By the way, why is Wu Buping targeting you? Among the 4 mercenary groups in the capital, our group's overall strength should be the weakest. After all, we walk the path of the elite. Our members are extremely few, and we rely on high-end martial arts to support us. Compared to the mercenary groups that have hundreds or thousands of members, we have lost a lot in terms of the number of members. When Zhu Machin said this, he didn't seem dispirited at all. On the contrary, he looked very proud. What he said was true. His mercenary group, which had a small number of members, was almost equivalent to a small team of ability users. Yet it had actually suppressed several large mercenary groups with hundreds of members, and become one of the top 4 mercenary groups in the capital. It was indeed something to be proud of. Wu Buping is a very ambitious person. In the beginning, he tried to poach my members, but my members were quite reliable and didn't get poached. Later, his mercenary group gradually grew, and from poaching, he developed to wanting to annex us and become the number 1 mercenary group in the capital. After all, persimmons are soft persimmons. When he said this, Zhu Machin laughed. He actually said that I'm not a soft persimmon, but compared to the other 2 of the 4 mercenary groups, we really are soft persimmons. Xiaoqing couldn't help but laugh. She lowered her voice and said, "So Wu Buping has been targeting you?" You can put it that way. Especially recently, their regiment has had experts breaking through one after another. Their ambition has become even more uncontrollable. This time, their attempt to make a move on me is a signal. Zhu Machin narrowed his eyes and said indifferently, "I estimate that in a few days, they will make a move against our mercenary group." Although Wu Buping's ambition isn't small, there's also a huge problem. His mercenary group has too many members and is too messy. It's not pure, and its cohesiveness isn't as good as the other 3 groups. To think about it, he needs to get rid of the impurities first, and kick out some unqualified members. However, Qin Zishi analyzed in a low voice, Mad Demon's reputation is too bad. It's all because of those low-quality members. If he blindly indulges them, then he definitely won't be able to achieve great things. Xiaoqing rubbed her chin. That's not necessarily true. After all, Wu Buping's leadership ability and strength are both quite good. It's a pity that he's a bit blind. If he was given a chance, Mad Demon might actually be able to climb up step by step. Forget about it. Let's not talk about this and ruin everyone's appetite. Xiaoqing picked up a small piece of pickled vegetable and said, "Let's eat first." The lady boss's cooking was indeed quite good, and her alcohol tolerance was also quite high. After all the dishes were served, she accompanied everyone to drink, and half of the wine went into her stomach. Chapter 327. The landlady was very straightforward. She took out all the wine she had collected, and even Xiaoqing drank a little. After eating and drinking to their heart's content, they really went back to their own homes. Xiaoqing and the others also went back with Qin Zishi. When they got back, they saw Grandpa Qin sitting at the door, looking at the garden in loneliness. Little Baozi immediately pounced on the old man. The old man's loneliness was immediately swept away. "Oh, you're back." He caught little Baozi and pinched his belly. "Let Grandpa see if you're full." The food this time was very delicious. The little bun's belly was round. Although he would vomit later, he was still very happy. "Baby, you ate a lot. I brought some food for Grandpa." He took out a candy figurine and handed it to the old man. The Tang man had obviously made the figurine based on him. It was like a miniature version of the little bun. The old man couldn't bear to eat it. He held it in his hand and looked at it. He couldn't stop smiling. "Baby, you still remember to bring something for Grandpa." "Of course I have to share good things. I have to give Grandpa a share." The little bun shook his head. He had never had any relatives in the same generation as his grandparents. Suddenly he met an old man who was so nice to him. Moreover, this old man was the grandfather of his friends. He immediately cherished him. He also knew that he would have to go home in less than 2 days. He would have to leave his friends and grandpa. The reluctance in his heart made him feel closer to his friends and grandpa. After the group went back to their own rooms, especially Yan Qiyu, she directly took the smoke from Xiaoqing and went to do an experiment. Xiaoqing, Qin Zishi, and the pair who looked more like Grandpa and Qin Zishi were left in the living room downstairs. "When are you going to leave?" the old man asked. He wasn't driving them away. It was just a normal question. "Tomorrow or the day after." Xiaoqing thought for a while and said, 3 days at the latest. It depended on how much she could torture someone in 3 days. "You'd better not leave Jingdu for the next few days. In the past 2 days, there have been 8 consecutive zombie attacks. 2 survivor bases have been destroyed because of the zombie siege." The old man frowned and said, "Moreover, the zombie tide hasn't completely stopped yet. If you return in the next 2 days, you may encounter danger." "Zombie uprising? It's not a full moon night these 2 days." Xiaoqing was a little surprised. Zombie riots usually happened on the night of the full moon, because on this day of the month, the zombies were the most active and violent. Even she was inevitably affected. Normally, unless there was a zombie king leading the zombies, it would be very difficult to cause a zombie tide. How could there be so many zombie tides? The old man hesitated for a moment, then lowered his voice and said, "I don't know the specifics, but I'm sure that this zombie attack was premeditated. 8 riots, all the way from a place slightly further away from the capital. Several bases were heavily damaged, and 2 were completely destroyed. Now we receive requests for help every day." The old man said uneasily, "Normally, normal zombie hordes wouldn't be able to threaten the capital. The height of the city wall alone is enough for those zombies to torment. But this time, there are at least 2 zombie kings leading the hordes. Anyway, it's very dangerous." Xiaoqing nodded her head. It seemed that she had woken up from her beautiful dream of leaving early. However, that was also good. She could use this opportunity to punish a certain scum. After chatting for a while, the old man held the little bun in his left hand and his grandson in his right. He went to the practice area outside and called a few people over. Although the old man was over 50 years old, he still had his strength. Xiaoqing was even taught a game by him, and it ended in a tie. Then the old man took his 2 precious grandsons with him. She went upstairs to bed. Xiaoqing, on the other hand, didn't sleep. She found a place with a good view and sat down. Then, she began to organize all the information she had received over the past few days. The first thing she needed to do was to get rid of Lin Qifan. This was the most important thing. Before she got rid of Lin Qifan, she wasn't going to leave the capital. The second thing was about the Mad Demon mercenary group. This time, she had thoroughly offended Wu Buping. However, Xiaoqing wasn't afraid. Instead, she was considering whether or not she should help Zhu Machin get rid of the Mad Demon mercenary group. To be honest, she didn't like the Mad Demon mercenary group. It was one thing for them to want all kinds of people, but they even wanted animals and scum. Even if they were foreigners, she had heard about the Mad Demon mercenary group's misdeeds. Bullying the weak was the most common thing. Things like bullying men and women, and even killing people for their belongings were all very common. Moreover, the Mad Demon mercenary group was very united. Basically, if you beat one up, you would attract a bunch of others. Therefore, people with some strength were too lazy to provoke the Mad Demon mercenary group. And those who didn't have strength could only be bullied. Now that she had been dragged into this matter, she couldn't just stay out of it. Instead of waiting for the Mad Demon to take revenge, she might as well make the first move. No matter what, the one who made the first move had the advantage. The third thing was about the zombie uprising. If the zombie uprising didn't stop in a short period of time, they definitely wouldn't be able to return to S-City survivor base. From what the old man said, the zombie uprising this time wasn't as simple as it seemed. After sorting out her thoughts, Xiaoqing slowly went upstairs and prepared to rest. For the first time, Yan Qiyu wasn't in her room. Only her air dye was lying on the bed and rolling around. Xiaoqing knew that Yan Qiyu was studying the fog. She took off her clothes and fell on the bed. She turned over and over again. She wasn't used to it. Chapter 328. Xiaoqing tossed and turned in bed until midnight. Yin Qiuyue ran up with dark circles under his eyes. When he reached the door, he immediately lightened his footsteps, afraid that he would startle Xiaoqing. Xiaoqing said, "Come in. If you don't sleep, I'll go and urge you." When Yin Qiuyue heard this, fireworks exploded in his heart. He first took a quick shower, and then crawled into bed. "I've already figured it out." Xiaoqing was stunned. She thought it would take 2 days. That thing is indeed not a good thing. It's a kind of highly poisonous plant with a lot of chemical ingredients. It will corrode the skin and flesh of people once it comes in contact with it. More importantly, this thing can get into people's bodies and corrode their internal organs. At first, it can't be detected, and people will only feel a dull pain in their stomachs. After a long time, most of the internal organs will be corroded, and people will die. Yin Qiuyue narrowed his eyes and whispered, "It seems that it also has the effect of reducing the activity of supernatural abilities. Your vines are too overbearing. They have melted most of the mist. That's all I can find out." Xiaoqing couldn't help but frown. "Is there a way to restrain it? I'm still studying it." Yin Qiuyue was a little embarrassed. He quickly raised his hand. "Give me 2 or 3 days. I will definitely find a way to restrain this thing. Your health is the most important thing. It's already midnight. Go to sleep first." Xiaoqing suppressed the slight uneasiness in her heart and whispered, "Okay." Yin Qiuyue was like a spoiled little wife. He obediently shrank into the bed, and then quietly moved forward. He put his arms around Xiaoqing's waist and whispered, "Qing, are you worried about me? Is that why you haven't fallen asleep?" Xiaoqing was silent for a long time. She didn't know if it was because she was exposed or something else. After a while she whispered, "Go to sleep." Seeing that Xiaoqing didn't want him to let go, Yin Qiuyue didn't want to pretend to be obedient and fell asleep. Early the next morning, Xiaoqing gave the last of the fog in the vines to Old Master Qin. She believed that Old Master Qin would definitely be able to find something. After all, no matter how strong she was not as powerful as the Qin family in terms of investigating things. Besides, the Qin family was a powerful family in the capital. If Mad Demon really did something unforgivable, she would have to inform the powerful family when dealing with this local snake. He had to be a polite and good child. Of course, if the Qin family was willing to help and deal with Mad Demon, it would save Xiaoqing a lot of trouble. Old Master Qin wasn't an unreasonable person. After hearing Xiaoqing's simple explanation, his expression immediately turned serious. He called Father Qin over and asked him to take the item for a second appraisal. Although according to Xiaoqing, this thing was a chemical weapon, it wasn't too harmful. However, some people couldn't help but touch certain taboos after tasting the benefits. If it was confirmed that this thing was indeed a chemical weapon, he would send people to secretly investigate Mad Demon Mercenary Group. Even if Mad Demon Mercenary Group didn't do anything, he would send people to monitor them for a period of time. After dealing with this matter, Xiaoqing felt a lot more at ease. She patted her paws and went to do what she needed to do. The moment she stepped out of the door, she received a message from Xiao Tong using her spiritual power. Lin Qifan was here. Because Xiaoqing and Old Master Qin were discussing business, Little Bun went to the door to play. He played the game of throwing a ball out and letting Yiyi pick it up. He was having a lot of fun. Yiyi was pitiful. This time, Little Bun threw a ball that was about the size of a basketball. Every time Little Bun threw it out, it would bounce the ball back. Chapter 329. After playing for a day, his scalp would probably be 3 layers thick. At this moment, Lin Qifan came over. He caught the ball and said to the Little Bun with a smile, "I'll play with you." Little Bun had seen Lin Qifan before, and didn't have a good impression of him. Mommy didn't like him, so he was a bad guy. He frowned and pouted. "Give me back the ball." Lin Qifan wasn't angry. He chuckled and said, "Look, no one is playing with you. Can't I play with you?" "I don't want you to play with me." Little Bun put his hands on his waist and said angrily, "I have you yet to play with me. You're a bad guy." "How am I a bad guy?" Lin Qifan asked Little Bun sadly. Little Bun paused for a moment and said, Mommy doesn't like you, so you're a bad guy. Lin Qifan sighed and walked over with the ball. He bent down and said sadly, actually, I'm not a bad guy. Speaking of which, you should call me Daddy. Your mommy and I are husband and wife. Husband and wife, did you know that? Lin Qifan took out a photo. In the photo, Xiaoqing was wearing a wedding dress. She was holding a bouquet of flowers and standing next to Lin Qifan. At that time, Xiaoqing's eyes were filled with gentleness. Just a faint smile was enough to warm anyone's heart. Little Bun was shocked. After a while he said, impossible. Why is it impossible? Lin Qifan frowned slightly. How could a normal child be so hard to fool? Mommy said it was spicy. My daddy is already dead. Little Bun said seriously, so you're definitely not my daddy. You must be a bad guy who came to lie to me. Lin Qifan froze and lowered his eyes. He was already very handsome. Otherwise, Xiaoqing wouldn't have taken a liking to him. At that moment, his eyelashes trembled and his voice trembled. So, she hates me that much. The little bun didn't know what to do. After a while he poked Lin Qifan. Hey, you're not crying, are you? Lin Qifan lowered his eyes and pretended to tell little bun a story. In Lin Qifan's story, he became a man who was deeply in love with Xiaoqing. Fu Jinling, on the other hand, became a vicious mistress. She liked him and confessed to him, but he rejected her. Then her love turned to hatred and she attacked Xiaoqing, causing Xiaoqing to have a miscarriage and almost die. In the end, Xiaoqing misunderstood that he had done something wrong to Xiaoqing. Coincidentally, the apocalypse happened, so the two of them were separated. In short, in the story, he was a good man who was affectionate and loyal. In short, all the mistakes were Fu Jinling's. However, as soon as he finished speaking, the little bun said decisively, that won't happen. Mama said that I'm her biological son. Lin Qifan was stunned by the little bun's ability to grasp the main point. He said, that's not the main point. The main point is that I'm not a bad person. Little bun grabbed Yanya's ear and said in boredom, then you can explain to Mama. If you are right, Mama will definitely forgive you. If you are wrong, Mama will not forgive you. How simple is that? But your mother won't listen to my explanation. Lin Qifan sighed and continued. She hates me to the core now. I can explain for you. The little bun tilted his head and said seriously. Okay, you can return the ball to me. I'll go back and tell Mama. Lin Qifan didn't dare to let the little bun talk to Xiaoqing about this. The little bun didn't know what happened that year, so it didn't matter if he made things up. Xiaoqing knew very well. Chapter 330. If the little bun went back and told his mother, wouldn't that expose everything he had done? Then not only would he not be able to get Xiaoqing's forgiveness from the little bun, but it would also backfire on him. Hence, Lin Qifan hurriedly said, wait, don't tell your mother, okay? Otherwise, she will definitely think that I deliberately approached you. Didn't you deliberately approach me? The little bun tilted his head looking innocent. If I didn't approach you deliberately, did you meet me because you got lost? Lin Qifan was speechless. Who gave birth to this child? Why was he so difficult to deal with? He forced a smile and said, no, I mean your mother will be angry. She might even be angry at you. The little bun said seriously, don't worry. My mother won't be angry at me. She loves me the most. Lin Qifan was speechless. There was no way to continue the conversation. He racked his brains and said, what I mean is, this is a secret between the two of us. Don't tell anyone. Good children won't tell anyone. But why would I have a secret with a bad person? The little bun widened his eyes and said fiercely, only bad children have secrets with bad people. So all his words were for nothing? Lin Qifan felt helpless. He scratched his head and said, how about this? I'll treat you to something. Don't tell anyone about our secret, okay? Lin Qifan was even prepared to hear this. Who wants to eat something given by a bad person? What if you want to harm me? Then the little bun suddenly changed his tone and nodded. He said seriously, you don't have to treat me to something. Play ball with me. Then I won't tell my mother. Lin Qifan was speechless. Everything seemed to have returned to square one. Then he saw the little bun take the ball from his hand and throw it away. He looked at him with his big, sparkling eyes. There were 3 words written in his eyes. Go and pick it up. The veins on his forehead bulged. Only dogs would pick things up, okay? However, in order to keep the little bun's secret and to continue his conspiracy, Lin Qifan gritted his teeth and picked up the ball. Most importantly, after he picked up the ball, little bun exclaimed, "Why isn't it faster than Yiya?" Yiya, who was sitting at the side, nodded. The rabbit's face was solemn, and there was even a hint of mockery. That's right, you're not as fast as me, a rabbit. Lin Qifan wanted to kill someone. He forced a smile and passed the ball to Little Bun. After Little Bun received the ball, he threw it out without a word and looked at Lin Qifan expectantly. Lin Qifan ran around expressionlessly. In the end, he felt like he had nothing left to live for, so he quickly found an excuse to leave. When he was about to leave, Little Bun had a reluctant look on his face. You must come and play with me some other day. Lin Qifan agreed and left in a sorry state. After he left, Little Bun clapped his hands and carried Yiya home with a look of disdain. Actually, Xiaoqing had been watching from the side for the second half of the journey. However, she had been hiding so Lin Qifan didn't see her. When Little Bun entered the house, he saw Xiaoqing standing at the door. Little Bun immediately pounced on her. Mommy, are you done talking with Grandpa? Xiaoqing rubbed Little Bun's head. Yes. Baby, did you have fun? I had fun. Mommy, let me tell you. An idiot came today. Little Bun immediately told Xiaoqing about Lin Qifan. Chapter 331. Xiaoqing laughed. She lowered her voice and asked, Didn't you promise him that you wouldn't tell me? Why are you telling me now? Mama, I was lying to that bad guy. Little Bun said proudly. He must be lying, and he must be up to no good. Otherwise, why would he sneak up on me? My baby is so smart. Xiaoqing kissed Little Bun, then narrowed her eyes and smiled. Lin Qifan had always thought that he was very smart. He didn't expect that he would be fooled by a child like Little Bun without realizing it. Thinking about how Little Bun fooled Lin Qifan like he was walking a dog, Xiaoqing felt inexplicably happy. Yes, baby, you did the right thing. What do you want to eat for lunch? Braised rabbit head. Little Bun said excitedly. I want the super spicy one. A certain rabbit in his arms immediately trembled and quickly curled itself into a ball, burying its head between its 2 paws to prevent its master from seeing its rabbit head. Children can't eat too spicy food. Xiaoqing sighed and smiled. But you can eat a little tonight. Mama, the spicy one is the best. Little Bun leaned forward and took another bite. Xiaoqing's face was covered in saliva. While they were having a good time, Lin Qifan sighed all the way as he left. In his opinion, a child who was at most 4 or 5 years old would be easy to fool. He didn't expect Little Bun to be so hard to deal with. He originally thought that he would be able to deal with Little Bun in one meeting today, but he didn't expect that he would only be able to get to know him so soon. Based on this speed, he was afraid that 3 to 5 days wouldn't be enough for him to get Little Bun. Lin Qifan was afraid that Xiaoqing wouldn't care about their relationship and directly make a move on him. If that happened, he wouldn't even have time to prepare before he could meet God. Thinking of this, he hated Fu Jinling very much. If Fu Jinling hadn't seduced him at that time, if Fu Jinling hadn't tempted him with those things, he wouldn't have cheated on Xiaoqing. If he hadn't cheated on Xiaoqing, he wouldn't have had to struggle in this post-apocalyptic world. He wouldn't have had to deal with those women, and he wouldn't have had to look at other people's faces. If he hadn't cheated on Xiaoqing, he would be the one living in that luxurious villa with Xiaoqing now. Lin Qifan never considered who was the one at fault. As the saying goes, it takes 2 to clap. If he wasn't greedy, if he wasn't delusional, if he wasn't cruel and heartless, he wouldn't have ended up like this. There would always be some people like this. When they made a mistake, they would never think about their own mistakes, but how to push the blame onto others. For example, Lin Qifan. Lin Qifan left with a heart full of sorrow. Xiaoqing left with a heart full of sorrow. This time, she went out with Qin Zishi. Father Qin had a bodyguard team, and the members were all powerful paranormals selected from the army. These paranormals had the perseverance and loyalty of soldiers, plus the obedience and unity of soldiers. They were much stronger than ordinary teams of paranormals who were scattered like sand. It could be said that Father Chin and his 100 or so people could take on a large mercenary group without any problem. This time, they went out because of the zombie attack. As Father Chin's son, Qin Zishi had returned from his training and had a certain level of strength. Therefore, Father Chin wanted to train Qin Zishi, so he let him take part of the bodyguard team to investigate the cause of the zombie attack. Chapter 332. In fact, Mr. Chin was worried. On one hand, he wanted to train his son, but on the other hand, he wanted to go with them. In the end, he couldn't because of his busy schedule. Xiaoqing naturally had to go with them. First of all, they lived in the Qin family because of Qin Zishi. If Qin Zishi went out, they would feel uncomfortable living in Qin Zishi's house alone. Second of all, it was not safe to go out. Xiaoqing was still worried about her son's friends. Besides, she also wanted to find out how the zombie tide was formed, so she went with them. Mr. Qin was worried about his son, so he sent nearly 20 superpowered people to be his son's bodyguards. In addition, there was Lan, who had a space superpower and was responsible for carrying supplies. It was a painstaking effort to ensure that his son could live well outside and achieve the effective training. However, the little bun didn't go with them this time. He was asked to stay by Old Master Qin. Old Master Qin said that the little bun was still a child. He would be traumatized if he came into contact with zombies every day. Besides, it was so dangerous outside. It was better to leave the little bun with him. He promised to make the little bun gain a few pounds. Xiaoqing thought about it and agreed. It was much safer for the little bun to stay in the capital than to take risks with her, so she agreed. The little bun originally wanted to follow Xiaoqing, but he was tempted by Old Master Qin's army of desserts. In the end, he waved his hand happily and sent his mother away. Xiaoqing didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She, his mother, was not as important as a few boxes of desserts. After leaving the little bun, they gathered and left the capital. Xiaoqing looked at the group of bodyguards and felt a little melancholy and nostalgia. She believed that Yan Hanqing would feel the same way. After leaving the capital, they first rushed to the place where the latest zombie tide broke out. When they stopped for lunch at noon, the scene was very different. Xiaoqing set up the grill and began to barbecue meat. The bodyguards were more pitiful. They were all provided with the same kind of compressed biscuits for lunch. Eating one biscuit and drinking water was equivalent to eating several bowls of rice. If there was no comparison, there would be no harm. The group of people looked at the barbecued meat in full swing, and their saliva dripped down. Their salary wasn't low, but eating barbecued meat every day was a luxury for them. After all, they still had to feed their families. Usually they would eat the canteen food, the kind that had no oil at all, only a little bit of diced meat, and not many vegetable leaves. Only when he received his monthly salary would he be willing to go out and find a restaurant to have a meal. Then he looked at Xiaoqing and the others. Judging from their skillful postures, rich ingredients, and complete props, it was obvious that they often received special treatment. How could they not be envious? Originally, Xiaoqing wanted to grill more and invite them to eat together. After all, they would be her teammates for a long time. Naturally, he had to be nicer to his teammates. Then, when Xiaoqing was about to get up and invite them to eat, she heard someone murmur, "Rich people are really different. What time is it now? Still so pretentious. You really think you're the boss?" She sat down again. If they didn't appreciate it, how could she put her hot face on their cold butt? She wasn't asking for it. So, Xiaoqing only called Qin Zishi and Lan to eat. After the apocalypse, they ate barbecued meat the most. Because the ingredients were easy to find, and it was convenient to eat, they could grill meat while eating. It was quite fun. Chapter 333. Since they ate a lot, they were naturally more proficient in cooking. Xiaoqing was slicing the meat with a knife. Yan Hanqing brushed the meat with oil and skewered it into skewers and began to roast it. Then a row of people squatted next to them, each with a bowl in their hands. Because there were not many iron skewers, Yan Hanqing took off the roasted meat every time he finished roasting a few skewers and put them in their bowls. They were so happy. The members of the escort team on the other side could only gnaw on dry biscuits. Looking at them eating barbecued meat, the aroma of barbecued meat lingered at the tip of their nostrils, and the tasteless biscuits in their mouths. It was like chewing wax, and they almost burst into tears. Xiaoqing wasn't the only one who heard what one of their team members said. Because his voice wasn't very soft, as long as one's 5 senses were slightly sharper, they would be able to hear it. Furthermore, everyone present was a psychic, so who would be able to miss this sentence? This was also the reason why Qin Zishi sat down and began to eat with only Alan. If it were any other day, and no one said such unpleasant words, Qin Zishi would definitely discuss with Xiaoqing to roast more meat and share it with them. After all, they were all on the same side. However, they did not expect that someone had already said such words. If they still did so, they would be slapping their own faces. Xiaoqing and the others did not jump up and scold them, which was already very restrained. Qin Zishi was also very angry and embarrassed about this. After all, these members of the escort team were his father's subordinates, and they might become his subordinates in the future. In the end, they humiliated him. It was fine if they humiliated him, but they also mocked Xiaoqing and the others. This was intolerable. As for the members of the escort team, they were indeed a little resentful because when they went out, Qin Zishi's father said that Xiaoqing and the others were all Qin Zishi's friends, and asked the escort team to take care of them along the way. Therefore, the escort team spontaneously thought that Xiaoqing and the others were also the second generation of a rich family, and because of their family's wealth or power, they were lawless. Just like this time, their mission was to go out and explore the source of the zombie attack. This was a very difficult mission, and they had to protect Qin Zishi. In the end, the rich second generation insisted on following them, increasing the difficulty of their mission. At that time, there might even be people sacrificing themselves. Naturally, they were unhappy. Of course, although they were unhappy, no one would take the initiative to ruin Xiaoqing's reputation. Most of the people in this group were veterans. No matter how stupid they were, they knew that they shouldn't offend people casually. However, when it was time to eat, Xiaoqing and the others barbecued meat and drank beer, which not only aroused their resentment, but also aroused their jealousy. Why are we sitting here eating biscuits while you guys are eating barbecue? They're just a bunch of second-generation rich kids who don't know how to differentiate between food and drink. They want to accept our protection and come out on a mission, but they still want to enjoy themselves like masters. That was why some people couldn't stand it and secretly complained. Xiaoqing could guess a little bit, but it was their business what they thought. She didn't need to explain, but she didn't have a broad mind to ignore the sarcasm. Since they all gave her the cold shoulder, she didn't need to stick to them. They could just live their own lives. As a result, the atmosphere suddenly became cold and awkward. After lunch, Xiaoqing rummaged through the inventory and took out a lot of fruits to share with her friends, especially Qin Zishi and Xiaotong. They were still children, and it was very important for them to take vitamins and so on. Chapter 334. Once she did that, some people found her an eyesore and said sarcastically, "Hey, even if we work hard for the rest of our lives, we still can't catch up to her. She has a good father." Another person whispered, "Keep your voice down. What if she hears you and gives you a hard time? They all have powerful backgrounds. It's easy for them to kill a little bumpkin like you." "That's right. I'm afraid that in their eyes, you're not even worth as much as that bunch of grapes." Immediately, another person laughed. The more they talked, the louder their voices became. They seemed to be quite unscrupulous. Qin Zishi's face was cold to begin with. Now he flew into a rage. He slammed the table and said coldly, "All of you get back. We're not far from the capital now. It won't take much of your time. You'll arrive in the capital in the time it takes to gossip." The group of ruffians immediately fell silent. The captain saw that Qin Zishi was angry and hurriedly tried to smooth things over. "Don't be angry, young master. They're just a little talkative. I've already lectured them several times. The general is worried about you going out alone, so he asked us to follow and protect you. I definitely won't let them talk anymore." Qin Zishi sneered and raised his chin. Then he said, "You're all ability users. You're all very capable. Do you all think you're very powerful? Do you think that I need your protection, so you don't have to take me seriously? As he spoke, the temperature in his voice took a sharp turn. I'm telling you now. All of you get back. This is an order. I don't need your protection. The ruffians looked at each other and didn't dare to say anything. If they dared to go back now, their legs would be broken by Father Qin, leaving the only heir of the Qin family in the wilderness and going back alone. Wasn't that courting death? Even if they wanted to die, they shouldn't do that. The captain saw that Qin Zishi was really angry and hurriedly said, "Young master, this is our fault. I apologize to you and everyone on behalf of them. But we really can't go back. Our mission is to protect you." "You guys are protecting me?" Qin Zishi was expressionless. Her serious baby face actually looked a little murderous. "Previously, I tolerated it for Dad's sake and didn't stoop to your level. I didn't expect you to become more and more daring. Then I'll be honest. If I really encounter a problem that I can't solve on my own, do you think you guys can protect me?" He glanced around and said, "You don't believe me? All right, I'll let you try today. Whoever is more confident in themselves can come and compare notes with me. If no one can beat me, then all of you will apologize and scram back to the capital. If someone wins, then I won't say another word. Even if you curse me on the spot, I'll endure it." Those ruffians who had their heads lowered didn't feel that they were in the wrong. They were just worried that they would be chased back and run into the furious Father Qin, so they didn't dare to speak. Upon hearing Qin Zishi's words, the group of ruffians immediately beamed with joy and began to chime in one after another. "Young master, that won't do. What if you get injured with your small body? The general will kill me." "That's right. Young master, don't try to be brave. Just take it that we were wrong. Let it go. We'll definitely hold it in the future." "That's right. Young master, don't be angry. Just take it that we were wrong. We'll all apologize." "That's right. We don't dare to compare notes with you. Otherwise, we'll be cut up by the general when we go back." The corners of Qin Zishi's mouth curled up. From the angle of his eyes to the angle of his mouth, he looked very much like Xiao Qing when she was mocking people. His voice was sharp and gorgeous. "You want to hurt me? Are you kidding me? Actually, I've always felt that this guard team my father formed was a bunch of useless people. Really, I really want to persuade my father. Why is he so stubborn? Does he have a lot of food at home? Raising trash for no reason? What? Do you think I've hurt your dignity? Then don't find excuses. Let's fight one-on-one." Qin Zishi's aggro was simply off the charts. Those who didn't want to fight Qin Zishi one-on-one couldn't help but want to fight, let alone this group of eager people. Everyone's sleeves were intact. Even if Qin Zishi was Father Qin's son, they were prepared to beat him up. This was a matter of dignity. After being pointed at and scolded to this extent, if they didn't fight back, they would really be an iron-shelled turtle. Moreover, although this group of military ruffians was slick, each one of them was more unruly than the other. How could they withstand Qin Zishi's provocation? Someone immediately jumped out. "I'll do it. But let me say this first, young master. Fists and feet don't have eyes. Not to mention superpowers. If you scratch a little skin, don't go crying and complaining to the general. Even if you beat me to death here today, no one will find trouble with you. I can guarantee that this is my pride, my father's pride, and the Qin family's pride." Qin Zishi said as he slowly rolled up his sleeves. "That's good." This person couldn't wait to jump out and said excitedly, "I'm a level 3 superpower user, strengthening type. Be careful, young master." As soon as he jumped out, those who were familiar with him immediately began to lament. "How did this kid react so fast? He beat us to it. If I had known, I would have gone up first." Qin Zishi looked him up and down, then sneered. One move. It had to be said that he was too arrogant. Even Xiao Qing felt that he was a little annoying. Gu Panpan was still winking at her. "Sister Qing, Qin Zishi has learned all your skills. His poisonous tongue and provocative skills are first class." Xiao Qing smiled, found a place to sit down and began to watch the show. Others might not know, but how could she not know Qin Zishi's strength? After all, those mutant animals that Qin Zishi had subdued were all caught by her personally. Sure enough, those people were provoked to the point that they couldn't take it anymore. Old Lou, don't embarrass us. They were here to watch the show. That's right, Old Lou. Didn't you hear that young master wants to finish you in one move? You have to at least survive one move. This was an exaggeration. Come. Do you want to bet how long this fight will take? This was a big deal. You guys quiet down. Don't disturb their fight. This was the captain. Qin Zishi said with a serious face, beast taming ability, level 3 superpower user. Then he whistled. As soon as the whistle sounded, everyone immediately felt the ground shake, and they couldn't stand still. They looked up in horror, and saw a 2 to 3 meter tall bear running towards them. The captain's face changed immediately. He waved his hand and said in a shrill voice, "Gather. Prepare for battle. Protect young master." Such a big bear. It must be at least level 3, right? Don't be nervous. Take care of the bear yourself. Qin Zishi waved his hand, and the members of the guard saw the ferocious-looking bear rush over with a roar, then lie down very docilely beside Qin Zishi. When Qin Zishi patted its head, it let out a satisfied growl from its throat. Everyone was speechless. Chapter 335. His own bear? In other words, he was going to fight this bear? The paranormal's face immediately turned as dark as a burnt dumpling. It was just like how he thought he was kicking a sponge, only to realize that he was kicking an iron plate, the kind that was red hot. What was even more terrifying was that even though he knew it was a hot iron plate, he still wanted to kick it a second time and a third time. So this poor team member harbored the mentality that he was only a level 3. How powerful could a mutant animal be? He braced himself and said, "Come on." Then he was slapped away. He flew a few meters without any resistance and fell heavily to the ground. If he hadn't activated his ability at that moment, it wouldn't have been as simple as chest tightness and chest pain. His sternum might have collapsed. Someone immediately shouted, "Young master, it hasn't started yet. Why did you attack?" Qin Zishi looked innocent. "I thought he was ready when he activated his superpower." "That's enough." The captain of the guard stopped the person who wanted to continue speaking. He felt a little embarrassed. A loss is a loss. There's no need for so many excuses. That person could only shut his mouth. Qin Zishi continued. "Is there anyone else who doesn't agree? If not, come and apologize." Yes. Another man stood out from the crowd. He looked very strong, and people could associate him with the word majestic, especially his firm muscles. "I'm a strength ability user," the man said in a muffled voice. In his opinion, this mutant bear should be around level 3. Even if it was stronger than him, it definitely wasn't as agile as him. So his chances of winning were still relatively high. Then as soon as he activated his ability, he was slapped away. Even the distance he flew was exactly the same as the previous one. The people who were originally unconvinced were speechless. But they were still unconvinced. After all, no one was willing to bow down to someone they looked down on so easily. This was especially true for veterans like them, who were even more unwilling to do so. So Qin Zishi took his bear and slapped almost 80% of the guards present. Finally, Qin Zishi clapped her hands and raised her eyebrows in disdain. "Is there anyone else who doesn't agree?" This time no one responded. Everyone lowered their heads obediently. Qin Zishi glanced around and said, "Then go and apologize." However, no one moved for a long time. Qin Zishi said disdainfully, "What are men? They are men who are responsible. At the very least, they have to fulfill their promises. Cowards like you are not qualified to be soldiers, nor are you qualified to be men." A few of the veterans were greatly provoked. One of them straightened his neck and rebutted Qin Zishi. "Young master, it's not a problem for us to apologize to you because we respect the strong. But if you want us to apologize to that group, I can't do it." Gu Pampan and the others who were watching by the side laughed on the spot, especially Gu Pampan. She laughed so hard that she almost rolled on the ground. "You mean, you think we're not qualified enough to accept your apology, so you can eat your words? If that was the case, why did he agree to this bet in the first place? It's because you think you'll definitely win. Qin Zishi said that you're a group of cowards who can't afford to lose. I think he's praising you. You're worse than cowards. Why? Do you think I hurt your dignity? Then let's have a try. Gu Panpan rolled up her sleeves and sneered. I'll show you that even a weakling like me is stronger than cowards like you. Chapter 336. The group of people glared angrily, but they didn't dare to say anything. Those who had been by Xiaoqing's side for a long time had unknowingly been infected with her poisonous tongue. Gu Panpan immediately stepped forward, then said in a pained tone, I'm the weakest among us weaklings, but I feel that I'm stronger than all of you. If you don't dare to come up, that's fine too. I can let all of you come up together. The ability user who spoke first couldn't take it anymore. He jumped out and pointed at Gu Panpan. I'll do it. He could be slapped by a bear, but how could he be slapped by Gu Panpan? Impossible. Reality told us that we should never raise flags. He activated his ability and charged forward fiercely. Then he was slapped back by Gu Panpan, who had turned into a King Kong Barbie. After slapping this person, Gu Panpan stomped her foot on the ground, causing a long crack to appear. Her eyes were cold and carried a bit of fierceness. Who else? I gave you some face, and you want to start a dye house? If it wasn't for Sister Qing telling us to keep a low profile, I would have thrown you weaklings back. The members of the escort team were stunned. At this point, no matter how stupid they were, they knew that none of Xiaoqing's group was simple. If something really happened, they would be the ones dragging them down. Thus, the group of people became more and more embarrassed. In the end, the captain of the escort team was the first to step forward and apologize sincerely. Sorry we looked down on you. I apologize on behalf of my teammates. Although the members of the escort team were a little embarrassed, they all came forward to apologize. Xiaoqing brushed the dust off her clothes and said indifferently, no need to apologize. Then she changed her seat. Qin Zishi waved her hand. All right, you can all go back. We don't need you here. The captain smiled fawningly and said, Master, you really can't drive us away. We all know our mistakes and we've apologized. Please let us stay. At least we can still do some trivial things. Qin Zishi wanted to refuse, but seeing the captain's fawning and pitiful expression, and considering that his father and grandfather would be worried, she said coldly, You can stay but don't cause any more trouble. The group of people hurriedly promised, each more sincere than the other. After this incident, the group of people didn't think they were so awesome anymore. After all, there were only two people who had shown their strength. One was Qin Zishi, and the other was Gu Panpan. Qin Zishi, a bear, and Gu Panpan defeated them in a second. What about the rest of them? Not to mention Xiaotong, who looked like an underage girl, Yin Qiyue, who looked like a boy toy, and finally Dumbo, who seemed to have a problem in IQ. It seemed that there was nothing to pay attention to. Cough cough. Back to the main topic. At least Gu Chuan, Yin Hanqing, and Xiaoqing all looked awesome. This was especially true for Xiaoqing. As the leader of this group, she should be the strongest among them. Therefore, she was definitely stronger than Qin Zishi and Gu Panpan. Thus, the group of people felt as if they were looking up at a tall mountain, and looked at Xiaoqing with admiration. Xiaoqing was a little confused. Weren't they just mocking them? Why were they suddenly looking at her with such strange eyes? Were they not convinced and wanted to secretly trick her? In short, the atmosphere between the group of people finally became a little more harmonious, and it remained so until they arrived at their destination. Chapter 337. Their destination was a base that had been besieged by the zombie tide. It was a medium-sized base, neither big nor small. In order to deal with the zombie tide, the base had suffered heavy losses. When Xiaoqing and the others arrived, all the people in the base were repairing the fence. There were dark red bloodstains on the fence. After mixing with the dust, the bloodstains became a dark color. Almost all the superpowered people were injured. The group of people looked lifeless. They didn't feel like they had survived a disaster at all. It seems that the zombie tide has left. Xiaoqing looked around the base and said, Should we go in and check if there is anything special, or just go straight ahead? Let's check it out first. Let's get to know the situation first, Qin Zishi said in a low voice. Since the two leaders had spoken, no one objected. So they entered the base. Because of the zombie tide and their special identities, it was easy for them to enter the base and see the base chief. After explaining the purpose of their visit, Qin Zishi said to the base chief, "Is there anything special about the zombie tide this time?" "It's a special situation." The base chief thought for a moment, then said, "Indeed, we have experienced a zombie tide before, but it was always on a full moon night, like a riot. But this time, it happened at the beginning of the month, so it was very sudden. Because of that, we were not prepared and suffered heavy losses. That's one of the reasons. The second reason is that generally, zombie tides are formed spontaneously. We need to hold on until dawn at most, then the zombies will disperse. But this time, it was different. It felt like they were organized and premeditated. Once, they even pretended to disperse to lower our vigilance, and launched a surprise attack. That's one of the reasons why we suffered heavy losses." The more the base chief said, the gloomier his face became. Nearly 1/3 of the superpowered people in our base were killed in the zombie tide. If they hadn't retreated, our base would have been destroyed in a day or two. Xiao Qing and her friends looked at each other, and felt a little heavy in their hearts. In the past, the zombie tide was formed because of the riots of the zombies on the night of the full moon, and some special circumstances. This time, it was premeditated. Did that mean that there was a high-level zombie among the zombies who could organize a zombie tide? Did that mean that the zombies would be able to form a zombie siege anytime and anywhere in the future? If that was the case, they would be in big trouble. After learning about the situation, Xiao Qing and her friends declined the base chief's proposal to have dinner with them. Then they moved on to the next target. At that time, they had already turned around and walked back, because the zombie tide was moving toward the direction of the capital. Previously, they had taken a shortcut, so they missed the zombie crowd. When they arrived at the next base, the problem arose. Zombies were besieging the city. Yes, they happened to catch up with the zombie siege, and it wasn't as simple as a zombie tide. According to the news, all the zombie tides had gathered here. If one looked down from the sky, he or she would find that the surrounding area was densely packed with zombies. The swarming zombie heads alone were enough to make people with trypophobia collapse. Xiao Qing and her friends were a little worried. Did they have to wait until the zombie tide was over, and then go in to find out what was going on? Or, should they sneak into the base now and find out why it was besieged by so many zombies? If they went in now, they would all die. Chapter 338. Xiao Qing found a high slope. Looking down from the top, there were still countless zombies, which made people's hair stand on end. She had to say, "Let's set up camp nearby and see the situation first." She couldn't make a decision rashly. After all, she had to think about the group of people around her. If she made a decision rashly, it was equal to sending these people to death. Although the group of people were also very worried about the current situation, they also knew that those zombies were only surrounding the city and hadn't started to attack yet. Moreover, now wasn't the time to be reckless, so they found a relatively safe place where they could see the whole situation clearly and set up camp. After setting up camp, they had dinner, but they didn't have the mood to sleep. After all, danger was close at hand. Except for those who were particularly open-minded, few people could fall asleep. Then, when it was a little dark, Xiao Qing left the tent by herself. She was ready to explore the situation and see what was going on. When Xiao Qing mixed in with a group of zombies, in fact, she was still a little bit uncomfortable. Because there were too many zombies around, the smell was very strong. The smell of corpses, mixed with the smell of blood, was very strong and nauseating. Xiao Qing walked from one end of the zombie army to the other end. At last, she found an unusual existence. This existence was too eye-catching, because all the zombies avoided her. Only this one zombie cast a sharp look at her the moment it found her. And this zombie didn't look like a zombie at all. She was wearing a clean black dress. Except for her pale face and a festering wound on her neck, she looked more like a normal human. And this zombie was holding a... She didn't know whether to say it was a child's body or a skeleton. It should be a young child, which could be seen from the half-rotten skeleton. This zombie held Xiao Qing very tightly. Its eyes looked at Xiao Qing as if she would snatch it away. Xiaoqing could clearly feel its repulsion, but this zombie didn't attack Xiaoqing. It just growled in a low voice, as if it wanted to expel Xiaoqing from its territory. Xiaoqing touched his chin and walked around before leaving. In the middle of the night, the group of zombies launched an attack. Countless zombies rushed to the base without fear of death. Some fell under the superpowers, some fell under the bullets, but the rest of the zombies continued to advance. The siege and defense lasted for nearly 2 hours. Then, the group of zombies silently retreated and returned to their initial state of surrounding the entire base. Xiaoqing didn't understand what was going on, so she returned to the tent and continued to sleep. In the middle of the night, the sound of fighting shook the sky. There might be another zombie siege, but this time, Xiaoqing didn't get up to take a look. She curled up in the bed and continued to sleep. The next morning, Xiaoqing stood on the hillside and looked down. She saw a lot of zombie corpses lying on the side near the base. Of course, there were also a lot of human corpses. Because the zombies were still surrounding the base, there was no way to go out of the base to collect the corpses. Therefore, the human corpses had started to rot because they had been on the ground for a long time. It seemed that it wasn't the first day that the zombies had besieged the base. Xiaoqing was most curious about why the group of zombies had surrounded the base and then nibbled it away bit by bit. It couldn't be that they were hungry, so they specially passed through so many bases and came here to eat up the entire base. Moreover, she felt that these zombies were very organized and premeditated. They were organizing attacks again and again, consuming the strength of the base. They also knew how to surround but not attack, and exerted mental pressure. K, it felt like the zombies were about to become spirits. Xiaoqing didn't plan to take her friends to help. First of all, there were so many zombies. Even if there were a few more people, they wouldn't be able to help much. Second of all, they were only there to investigate the cause of the zombie attack, not to die. If you had the ability but didn't help, you would be heartless. If you didn't have the ability, you would be stupid. I have a feeling that the people inside probably know something. Xiaoqing discussed with her friends while eating. How about I go in and have a look tonight? Qin Zishi was the first to object, and his objection was very strong. No, Sister Qing, although you're very strong, a lot of ants can bite an elephant to death. There are so many zombies. It's too dangerous. I don't agree with you going in. The others all knew that Xiaoqing's body was special and wouldn't be attacked by zombies, but he didn't know that. He didn't want his friends to die. Hearing Qin Zishi's objection, even Yan Qiuyue looked at him gently. After all, she could see that Qin Zishi really cared about Xiaoqing. Don't worry. Xiaoqing rubbed Qin Zishi's head and said, don't forget that I have a special ability to not be discovered by zombies. Qin Zishi was still a little embarrassed. He said in a low voice, what if something happens? You can't run away when surrounded by so many zombies. There's no need to take risks. We've already found a lot of useful things. Even if we go back and report now, it's enough. As for this base, it's not that we don't want to save it, but that we don't have the ability. Instead of taking risks, it's better to go back and ask for help and see if we can save this base in time. Xiaoqing actually felt very warm. After all, Qin Zishi cared about her. However, she always felt that she was not far from the truth. She was ready to comfort Qin Zishi, so she said, you're right. Before Qin Zishi's expression softened, she said, but I think we can split into 2 groups. One group will go back and inform your father and see if they can send people to help. The other group will be me. I'll go in and have a look. I promise that I won't let myself be in danger. If something happens, I'll come out immediately. Qin Zishi was speechless. After all, they still had to go in. There would be no change. Chapter 339. Qin Zishi didn't say anything, showing that he didn't want to leave no matter what. In the end, Xiaoqing had no choice but to say, okay, I won't go, but we still need help. Qin Zishi hurriedly said, just let the guards go back. This boy was smart. Xiaoqing had to settle on Gu Chuan and his sister, and take half of the guards back to ask for help. Qin Zishi kept a close eye on them. No matter what, he couldn't let his little friend's mother take the risk. Then, when he realized that something was wrong, Xiaoqing was already in the base. She secretly entered the base by tearing the space. She was an unregistered person, and it would be troublesome if she was discovered. Fortunately, because of the zombie siege, countless people had died. The base was very chaotic, and no one would care if this person suddenly appeared. Therefore, Xiaoqing easily sneaked in. She found a few people sitting in the corner dejectedly, and then went forward to inquire about the news. "Brothers, how's the situation now?" They didn't suspect anything, and said one after another, "It's the 6th time. We've lost more than half of our people. If this continues, I'm afraid." The person who spoke had panic in his eyes. After all, everyone knew what would happen to them if the base was breached. "Last night, when the zombies attacked the base for the last time, we almost couldn't hold on. But at the last moment, the zombies suddenly became chaotic. Our people were in position in time, and we managed to hold on. I think we can hold on for one more round, at most." The last one sighed, and then took out a cigarette box from his chest pocket. There were 3 or 4 wrinkled cigarettes in the box. He gave one to each of the people around him, and took one to Xiaoqing. "Want one?" Xiaoqing shook her head. The 2 people beside the man immediately made fun of him. "Don't you usually value cigarettes more than your life? Why are you willing to give it away this time?" The man smiled bitterly. "No one knows if they can last another day. What's the point of keeping them?" Xiaoqing rummaged in her pocket and took out a box of thin Nanjing. She pulled one out and gave one to everyone. Didn't the higher-ups think of a way? "Yo, nice smoke." That person happily took it and tucked it behind his ear, then said, "Why didn't you think of a way? We've had dozens of meetings. That group of zombies seems to have a special ability. Once the signal is sent out, it will be intercepted. Even if the entire base is trampled by zombies, no one will know." The 3 of them gathered together and sighed. One of them glanced at Xiaoqing and said kindly, "You're still young and pretty. Think of a way to escape. No matter where you go, you'll have a way to survive." "Bah, if we could escape, we would have scattered long ago." Another man's eyes turned red after he said that. "My daughter is only 8 years old. If we could escape, I would send my daughter out first. It doesn't matter if I die, but my daughter." Xiaoqing was silent for a long time. She didn't know what to say. After all, the base was doomed to be destroyed. Even if Gu Chuan and the others brought reinforcements, distant water couldn't put out a nearby fire. As for nearby water, her strength alone was like a small splash of water. She couldn't put out the fire. She might even be evaporated by the fire. They were silent for a long time. Suddenly one of them said, "I heard that the higher-ups held a new meeting. They said that to catch the bandits, first catch the leader. If we kill the leader of the zombies, we can solve the zombie siege. I heard that they have begun to gather people to form a suicide squad to catch the leader." Chapter 340. Let's hope they succeed. The person who spoke didn't have much hope himself. How could it be possible to kill a zombie king among countless zombies? It was impossible to even think about it, okay? Xiaoqing chatted with them for a while before leaving. After she left, she summarized all the clues she had obtained. First of all, the zombie siege wasn't something that happened in a day. During this period of time, there had been a total of 6 attacks. More than half of the people in the base who could fight had been killed. The remaining people were either injured or exhausted. They wouldn't be able to survive the next attack. Obviously, the higher-ups knew more than the people at the bottom. They had found something and decided to capture the leader first. So Xiaoqing decided to participate in the selection of the suicide squad. She thought that she could learn more. When the time came, even if she failed, she could leave leisurely. Therefore, after Xiaoqing asked for directions, she went to sign up. Under such circumstances, there was no way she could organize a proper competition. The registration place was in the square. There was a row of tables. Staff members sat behind the tables. Sitting at the front of the table was a man who looked very decent and handsome. When Xiaoqing went to ask, he said dryly, "If you want to join the suicide squad, the base will give you 100 kilograms of food and 100 zombie nuclei. They are all level 2 and above. You can use them to settle your family." The base will also take care of your family until the base no longer exists. Of course, you have to prove your strength. His meaning was obvious. This mission was very dangerous. It was very likely that the whole team would be wiped out. No one could come back alive. So their families should be settled in advance so that they would have no worries. Okay. Xiaoqing nodded seriously. The girl sitting next to the man couldn't help but cover her face. Then she added, "May I know your identity, power, and level?" "I entered the base a few days ago. It's a survivor base in S City. I wanted to come here to replenish some resources." Xiaoqing smiled and said, "I'm a wood ability user, peak level 3. Xiaoqing had her reasons for saying that. All the paranormals in the base would generally have a registration and identification card, which she didn't have. If she pretended to be a paranormal in the base, she would be easily exposed. But if she pretended to be a paranormal from outside the base, it would be easy to say that she lost her temporary residence certificate when fighting against the zombies. The girl looked at her sympathetically. She was so unlucky. She came in to replenish her resources, but she happened to be surrounded by zombies. All right, now you have to prove your strength. The girl glanced at the handsome man beside her. He immediately stood up and said, "Fight with me. If you can hurt me or last for 10 minutes, you'll pass." The girl hurriedly pulled the man's sleeve and glared at him. This man was the strongest paranormal in the base. He was already a level 4 paranormal. If he didn't go easy on her, the woman in front of him wouldn't last for 10 minutes. There weren't many people who were willing to be a suicide squad, especially when they knew that this was a one-way trip. The girl was really afraid that the man would beat Xiaoqing and make her run away. Wouldn't it be a pity to beat a wood ability user at the peak of level 3? The man pursed his lips and finally said, "Don't be nervous. I'll go easy on you." Xiaoqing almost laughed. She hadn't seen such an honest person in a long time. He didn't even know how to lie. Chapter 341. However, Xiaoqing didn't boast that she didn't need others to go easy on her. She just smiled and said, "Okay." The man used his ability. His muscles immediately bulged. Was he a strength-type paranormal? Xiaoqing also released her own vines. She racked her brains to think of a way to go easy on him without making it seem like she was going easy on him. The vines wrapped around the man in an instant and tied him up tightly. Xiaoqing was stunned at first. Was the man so weak? Then she realized that something was wrong. The vines didn't pierce the man's skin. Secondly, the vines wrapped the man into a cocoon. But soon, the shape of the cocoon changed. It changed from a round shape to an indescribable shape. Then Xiaoqing saw something soft like liquid flowing out from the cracks. After flowing out, the whole cocoon deflated. Then the liquid on the ground formed a human shape. Finally, it turned into the man's appearance. What kind of ability was this? Xiaoqing was stunned for a moment. This was the first time she had seen such a strange ability. She had to admit that if this ability was used well, it would definitely be very awesome. Turning one's body into liquid, there shouldn't be anyone who could kill him. Xiaoqing was curious. Then she changed her mind. She wanted to see what other abilities the man had. After all, it was the first time she had seen such an ability. Xiaoqing pressed her hand down. Countless vines rushed up to the sky. Each one was like a sharp spear, stabbing at the man. The man didn't know when a spear would come from under his feet. He also didn't know where it would come from. It was a test of one's reflexes. However, the man dodged 99% of the vines. The remaining 1% was too tricky. Sometimes, several vines would stab at him at the same time. It was impossible for him to dodge. Therefore, he had to choose the situation with the least injury. Every time this happened, the vines would turn into liquid. Therefore, 10 minutes passed. Xiaoqing didn't hurt the man, and the man couldn't get close to Xiaoqing. The onlookers were stunned. They had never seen anyone who could fight with a man like this. Even if the man went easy on her, he was already a level 4 fighter, while Xiaoqing was only at the peak of level 3. At least in their eyes, Xiaoqing was only at the pinnacle of level 3. Also, even if the man went easy on her, Xiaoqing didn't use her full strength. Didn't you see that she only used one kind of plant from beginning to end? A rank 3 would attribute metahuman, should have at least 3 types of mutated plants for protection. Therefore, everyone looked at Xiaoqing as if they were looking up to a tall mountain. The man said expressionlessly, "You've passed the review. What's your name? You can go and claim your reward now." "My name is Xiaoqing," Xiaoqing said indifferently. The man nodded. "My name is Zhao Hansheng. We'll gather here at 7 o'clock tonight." After that, Xiaoqing left. She didn't claim her reward but found a quiet place to sleep. She wanted to recover her energy and prepare to follow this group of people at night. When Xiaoqing arrived at the gathering place, she saw a few people standing there. Surprisingly, Xiaoqing was the only woman among them. The leader was naturally Zhao Hansheng. In front of this group of people, there was a man wearing glasses who looked quite elegant. When Xiaoqing arrived, he coughed and said, "Is everyone here? I have a few words to tell you. First, this time, you're going to risk your lives for this base. No matter what the result is, the base will protect your families as much as possible before it's destroyed. Second, the zombie king you're looking for is a woman. She likes to wear red lipstick and black dresses. She's holding the skeleton of a child." Tenderness flashed across the man's eyes, but in the blink of an eye, that tenderness turned into coldness. Her weakness is the skeleton of the child in her hands. You can attack the skeleton to distract her. Chapter 342. Xiaoqing couldn't help but frown. Who was this man? He seemed to know the zombie king. Xiaoqing wasn't a resident of the base. She could leave at any time after completing her mission, so she asked straightforwardly, "You seem to know it?" The elegant man was embarrassed for a moment, but soon he laughed and said, "How is that possible? I only saw it commanding zombies yesterday, and it has been protecting the corpse in its arms. So I guess its weakness is the corpse." Oh! Xiaoqing didn't believe him at all. Her intuition told her that the man was a little guilty. Probably because of his guilty conscience, the man encouraged them and let them leave. At that moment, Xiaoqing knew that the man was the base chief. She followed Zhao Hansheng and the others out slowly. When they reached the edge of the square, she turned around and saw the base chief squinting his eyes. There was an indescribable evil in his eyes. She didn't know what he was thinking. The base chief was also startled by her sudden turnaround. He awkwardly avoided Xiaoqing's eyes. When the group of people reached the gate of the base, many people came out to see them off, just like the warriors who had gone on an expedition in ancient times. Zhao Hansheng took out a bottle of spray and said, "Spray this on your body. It can confuse the zombie's sense of smell. It won't last long, but it's enough for us to find the zombie king and kill it." Then he took the lead and sprayed it on himself. When he sprayed it on his armpits first, then on his chest and back. A strong smell of corpse spread out. This stuff was mostly made by collecting the body fluids of zombies. It could temporarily block the smell of human bodies and confuse the zombies' sense of smell, making them think that they were the same kind. Xiaoqing didn't want to spray it, because it smelled really bad. If she sprayed it on her body, she wouldn't be able to wash it off easily. Besides, the clothes she was wearing would definitely be ruined. It was like hurting the enemy 100 times but losing 12,000 times. However, in order not to appear too abrupt, she still endured the stench and sprayed it. However, she didn't spray much. As a result, Zhao Hansheng sprayed Xiaoqing's chest all over. Women are so pretentious. Is a little smell more important than your life? Xiaoqing's face turned green at that time. Fortunately, it was already dark and she couldn't see clearly. Then a group of people walked into the zombie crowd. To be honest, it was not a good experience to be in close contact with zombies, especially when there were so many of them. Once there was a flaw in the smell on their bodies, they would be swarmed by a group of zombies. Not to mention running back, it would be a good thing if they could even leave some bones behind. Even though they were prepared to die, they were still trembling with fear when they entered. There was a slightly younger youth whose legs were already trembling, looking especially pitiful. Xiaoqing couldn't help but ask him, "Since you're afraid, why did you come?" The youth whispered, "But I still have a sister. It doesn't matter if I die, but I have to fight for her." He puffed up his cheeks and said seriously, I'm not afraid of death, but I'm afraid of pain. Xiaoqing couldn't help but touch his head, but Zhao Hanxing glared at her in return. He mouthed, "Don't talk, be careful not to leak your smell." The youth was so scared that he hurriedly covered his mouth. His eyes rolled, looking at the zombies around him, and his face turned pale. Xiaoqing helplessly put her hands in her pockets, looking left and right. She didn't know whether it was good luck or bad luck, but she saw the woman standing in the zombie crowd at first glance. It stood quietly in the middle of the zombies, staring at them with a pair of eyes like black holes. It was still holding the skeleton in its arms. Xiaoqing was sure that it had found them. Chapter 343. At this time, Zhao Hanxing also found the woman. He whispered in surprise, "Follow me." Then he took the lead to walk to the female zombie king. As soon as they approached, the zombie king suddenly looked up to the sky and roared. The sound wave spread quickly, making people unable to stand still. At this time, the zombie king made the first move. Like a cannonball, it rushed to the crowd with a murderous aura. Zhao Hanxing was the first one to stand still after Xiaoqing. He quickly stepped forward and blocked the zombie king's attack like a solid wall. However, the zombie king's attack was not something he could resist. Zhao Hanxing was knocked back quickly, and he took several steps back. At this time, the zombie king pounced on him again. The two superpowered people behind Zhao Hanxing took the lead to attack. At this time, the base chief and several people were standing on the wall with binoculars, looking at the vague figures, especially the skyrocketing light and the deafening sound. Someone beside him asked, "Base chief, what if they fail?" The base chief said with a cold face, "Once they fail, we'll apply the zombie scent simulation drug and leave through the secret passage." To put it bluntly, it meant giving up the base. As long as the people were still there, he would have a chance to make a comeback. Giving up the base was not a big deal. No matter how reluctant he was to give up the previous hard work, he would not lose his life. On Xiaoqing's side, the battle was in full swing. The suicide squad led by Zhao Hanxing was fighting with the zombie king. Xiaoqing slowly opened her hands and pulled away two zombies who were trying to get close. At this time, Zhao Hanxing had collided with the zombie king for the second time. He didn't know whether to say that he was thick-skinned or not, but he didn't suffer a big loss when he collided with the zombie king head-on. He just needed to retreat a long distance every time to reduce the force. The other people were more pitiful. They were much weaker than Zhao Hanxing in terms of strength and superpowers. As soon as Zhao Hanxing was sent flying, the zombie king clawed at the face of the other paranormal and crushed his skull. The zombie king's strength was fierce. As soon as the smell of blood spread out, zombies naturally became restless and tried to get close. Although Xiaoqing wasn't going to help Zhao Hanxing and the others, she didn't want to hurt them either. She touched her chin and decided to create a chance for them to beat up the zombie king. Those poor zombies were suppressed by Xiaoqing's vibe before they could even get close. After all, Xiaoqing was now a level 5 zombie, which was no weaker than the zombie king. Therefore, the smell of blood filled the air, but not a single zombie came over. Those people were surprised and happy, and started to attack the zombie king. Zhao Hanxing took almost all the damage. If he couldn't take it anymore, he would liquefy the part that was in contact with the zombie king. For a while, the zombie king couldn't do anything to them, but they couldn't do anything to the zombie king either. Just as Xiaoqing was calmly watching the show, she suddenly heard a very vague voice. "Why are you helping them? We are the same kind." The voice was very vague. If you didn't listen carefully, you wouldn't be able to hear it clearly. Xiaoqing was stunned. Where did this voice come from? She glanced around and finally looked at the zombie king in disbelief. Could it be God? Could it be that zombies have their own consciousness after reaching level 5? However, Xiaoqing quickly overturned her thoughts. That voice kept echoing in her mind, and it was all vague and reproachful. Chapter 344. Even if a broken recorder was playing it over and over again, and the sound was very vague, Xiaoqing was sure that it was not a sound, but a spiritual power. Just like how Xiao Tong could communicate with her through spiritual power, this should be a warning from the zombie king using its spiritual power. Just as Xiaoqing was stunned, the zombie king descended from the sky like a black bat and viciously tore apart a person's throat. That man was none other than the boy who had been talking to Xiaoqing at the beginning. He made a few strange sounds from his throat, then fell to the ground, and bright red liquid flowed out of his wounds. Xiaoqing lowered her head and looked at him. Her bright eyes slowly dimmed, filled with the desire to live. It was as if she was saying, "I don't want to die. I can't die. I still have a sister. If I die, who will protect her?" Xiaoqing seemed to hear his voice, with a little bit of timidity. "I'm not afraid of death, I'm afraid of pain." She moved her fingers, then couldn't help but reach out and pick up the boy, putting him behind her. She couldn't save him, and the only thing she could do was to keep his body from being damaged for the time being. Zhao Hansheng looked back at Xiaoqing, his eyes full of doubt and anger, as if he was saying, "Why don't you help us trap the zombie king? Why are you doing nothing?" Xiaoqing didn't say anything, nor did she move. She just stood there, trying to communicate with the zombie king with her weak spiritual power. Perhaps the zombie king would tell her the truth. Xiaoqing gave a self-mocking smile. She clearly understood that everything she had done might be in vain. Sure enough, the zombie king had been feeding her some feelings of anger, mixed with a little murderous intent. This time, it didn't even make a sound. Xiaoqing was a little disappointed. She narrowed her eyes and carefully observed the battle. Because of Zhao Hansheng, the battle didn't seem to be one-sided. However, Zhao Hansheng was only a level 4 superpower possessor, and this zombie king was level 5. Even if Zhao Hansheng could temporarily resist the zombie king's attack because of his special superpower, he couldn't hold on for too long. If they didn't have other trump cards, this group of people would definitely lose. Xiaoqing didn't know whether she should make a move or not, because once she did, the battle between her and the zombie king would ignite the whole zombie crowd. At that time, the whole zombie crowd would go crazy because of the battle between two kings. They would attack the living people nearby, and the nearest place to them was the base. That was to say, as long as Xiaoqing made a move, the zombie siege would be brought forward. She might temporarily save a few lives, but soon more people would die, and they wouldn't be able to return to the city alive. They would still die at the hands of the crazy zombies. She was cold-blooded and heartless, but she wouldn't make a move for the time being. Xiaoqing's indifference surprised and angered everyone, but now wasn't the time to blame Xiaoqing. Every one of them was trying their best to attack the zombie king. However, the gap between them and the zombie king was too big. Even if they risked their lives to attack, they couldn't even reach the zombie king's skirt. Although they didn't know why the zombies nearby didn't attack them, they couldn't rely on luck. They had to finish the battle as soon as possible. Otherwise, it would be their base that would be destroyed. One of the men suddenly gritted his teeth and roared with red eyes. "If you have a chance to go back alive, take care of my wife for me." Then he pounced on the zombie king. His speed was very fast, and the zombie king was in a stalemate with Zhao Hansheng, so Zhao Hansheng didn't pay attention and was pounced on by him. As soon as he pounced on the zombie king, he used his hands and feet to lock the zombie king. Then many vines drilled out of his body and entangled him and the zombie king. He was also a wood-powered superpower possessor. After trapping the zombie king, the wood-powered man's body suddenly swelled like a balloon. Soon, he swelled up as if he had been injected with dozens of kilograms of water. Then he exploded into a mass of flesh and blood. This was a very special ability, which came from the spores of a kind of plant. It could be said to be his innate ability. In the past, this superpower possessor used to joke with his friends, saying that such an ability was useless. It could only be used to perish together with others, and he would never use it in his life. But now he used it. The blood mist spread and slowly dissipated. A shrill howl was heard. Except for the zombie king's messy hair, there was no wound at all. However, the child's skeleton in her arms fell apart because of the violent explosion. The fragile skeleton scattered all over the ground. The zombie king knelt on the ground in a panic, picked up the bones one by one, and put them into her arms. At this time, she didn't look like a zombie king that had caused countless uproars and launched a zombie siege. She looked more like a helpless mother. Zhao Hansheng's eyes were also red, but he knew that this was his only chance, the only chance to hurt or even kill this zombie king. And this chance was created by his companion's life. He absolutely couldn't miss it. In an instant, several superpower possessors used their strongest moves. Colorful superpowers instantly engulfed the Zombie King kneeling on the ground. What Xiaoqing could see was the Zombie King's last movement. In an instant, it curled up its body, protected all the scattered bones in its arms, and welcomed the superpowers with its own back. With a loud bang, Xiaoqing even felt the ground under her feet shake a few times. Especially the place where everyone was focusing their fire, it directly turned into a huge pit. As the smoke and dust dispersed, the thing in the pit was slowly revealed. First, there was a piece of flesh that had lost its skin, leaving only the spine, and the internal organs that could be seen through the spine. Those internal organs had turned black and smelled bad, without any vitality at all. Then it slowly straightened its back. The Zombie King didn't die. Even if it only lost the skin on its back, given enough time, it could recover. This injury was not serious, but it had already gone completely crazy. That was because although the skeletons in its bosom were well protected, they were, after all, the skeletons of ordinary children. They could not withstand the shock, and some of them had already shattered into powder. In everyone's horrified and unbelievable eyes, the Zombie King slowly stood up and inserted the rest of the bones, one by one, into her stomach. The last skull, because it was too big and blunt, couldn't be inserted, so she tore open her chest and stuffed it in alive. Obviously, this scene was very scary, but Xiaoqing saw a touch of gentleness in the Zombie King's eyes. A mother, even if she had become a zombie, still couldn't restrain her love for her children. This was really great. Chapter 345. It was worried that it wouldn't be able to protect those bones, so it would rather put them into its body and integrate them with itself. That way, unless it died, its children wouldn't be harmed. After all the bones were stuffed into its body, the Zombie King's blood-red eyes looked at everyone present. This was the post-apocalyptic era, the cruelest era. People had their own protection, and zombies had their own obsession. It was hard to tell who was right and who was wrong. Xiaoqing was actually a little tangled. She could see that Zhao Hanxing was a good person. It would be a pity if he died, but she couldn't save him. She could only watch the Zombie King run amok in the crowd. After the Zombie King went crazy, Zhao Hanxing acted like he was on drugs, crazily standing in the front. Whenever the Zombie King tried to attack his teammates, Zhao Hanxing would use crazy attacks to draw the Zombie King away, or directly become a human shield to protect his teammates. In a short time, no one was killed by the Zombie King, but Zhao Hanxing himself was scarred. Even if he could liquefy his body, it couldn't be used all the time, and when he was in the liquefied state, he couldn't bear any damage. Sometimes, in order to protect his teammates, Zhao Hanxing had to use his own body as a shield. Those paranormals also gritted their teeth and desperately attacked the Zombie King to relieve the pressure on Zhao Hanxing. The two sides were in a temporary stalemate. It was already 9 o'clock in the evening. Xiaoqing looked at the time. If it went on like this, Zhao Hanxing would definitely be defeated. Just when those paranormals were all scarred and about to lose, suddenly, a particularly sharp howl sounded from the north. The Zombie King, who was about to kill Zhao Hanxing and others, decisively stopped and roared in response to the howl. Then it didn't continue to fight and got into the crowd, heading north. As soon as Zhao Hanxing got out of the battle, he lay on the ground as if all his strength had been sucked out. He couldn't help but feel a little desperate. Was the Zombie King going to launch a general attack? Xiaoqing rolled up her sleeves as she walked past him. She threw some ointment on him to stop the bleeding. It was just right for now, when they were all injured all over. Zhao Hanxing can't help grabbing Xiaoqing's trousers. Xiaoqing lowers her head and looks at him in confusion. Zhao Hanxing's eyes are full of anger. Why? Why didn't you participate in the battle against the Zombie King? Why didn't you save those who had died? You clearly had the ability to do so. You were clearly a member of the team. Xiaoqing knew Zhao Hanxing's doubts, but she didn't want to explain. She didn't want to tell Zhao Hanxing and the others that she was a Zombie King, and that once she started a fight with the Zombie King, she would trigger the zombie siege in advance. Could it be that I did not help you? I chased away those zombies that tried to approach and created a relatively advantageous situation for you? So she didn't want to explain from the beginning to the end. Anyway, after this matter is solved, she will leave. She probably won't have many chances to meet Zhao Hansheng and the others in her life. If they are misunderstood, then so be it. Anyway, she and Zhao Hansheng are not familiar with each other. So what if they are misunderstood? Xiaoqing slightly raises her foot, then pulls her trousers out of Zhao Hansheng's hands. Then, she chases after the zombie king. Wherever she passes, those zombies will obediently make way for her. Zhao Hansheng closes his eyes. He can't tell if he is in despair or something else. He knows that he and his companions can't go back. They are surrounded by zombies, and they are covered in wounds. That thing can't cover the smell of blood. Once the zombie king leaves, the surrounding zombies will tear them to pieces. Chapter 346. It was a dead end. Zhao Hansheng closed his eyes and waited for death for a long time, but the pain didn't come. He opened his eyes and found a group of zombies walking past him. Every one of them looked at him like a foodie looking at a freshly baked Beijing duck, but they didn't have the money to eat it. Therefore, the group of zombies walked past him with an expression that said, "This human must be delicious." They didn't even look at him, and walked away without looking back. Although they didn't know what had happened, one thing was certain. They were lucky to survive. Although Zhao Hansheng was still worried that he would be torn to pieces as soon as he moved, thinking that the zombies were moving towards the base, he couldn't help but get up. Zhao Hansheng tentatively took 2 steps forward. Those zombies still didn't touch him. Only then did he feel relieved. He said to his friends, "You guys find a place to hide first." Then he hurriedly followed the zombie king. The other people were also seriously injured. They all knew that once the zombies started to attack the base, the gate of the base wouldn't open. So they definitely couldn't return to the base. So they could only find a place to hide first. Before they left, they carried their dead companions on their backs, which made the surrounding zombies so angry that they wanted to scratch the wall. Xiaoqing went all the way forward, following the zombie king from a distance. Then she saw the zombie king and several strange-looking zombies, who looked like monkeys that had been made into specimens, and then came back to life. There was even a mutant dog in the middle. Then the mutant dog led the zombie king, and the zombie king led his subordinates in a direction to outflank. Finally, after stopping at a mound, all the zombies quieted down, and under the zombie king's command, they ambushed nearby. After a while, the ground suddenly moved, and a black hole opened up. A wretched-looking man stuck his head out and looked around. Then he jumped out and shouted into the hole, "It's safe. Come out." Then many people came out of the tunnel, including the bespectacled base chief. Base chief said while crawling out, "Fortunately, we didn't do anything. Otherwise, we would have died in the city. Now let's go." Before he finished talking, he saw the zombie king standing behind the mound. He was so scared that he took a step back and almost fell to the ground. "Base chief, what's wrong?" The perverted man hadn't found the zombie king yet. He thought that the base chief was worried about losing his base, so he said, "Although this base is gone, we can find another place to start again. We can still build another base." The base chief could no longer hear him. He just stared straight at the zombie king. It was hard to tell what kind of complicated emotions were in his eyes. After a long time, he slowly stepped back. At the same time, he looked around, looking for a way to escape. The zombie king screamed, and all the zombies that were lying in ambush ran out and surrounded the group of people. The base chief's smile was a little ugly. He looked left and right and knew he was in a hopeless situation. He lowered his voice and said affectionately, "Siyun, are you here for me?" The zombie king stared at him. Its eyes became redder and redder, as if blood was about to drip out. Its aura also became more and more dignified and terrifying. Only Xiaoqing saw it clearly. At that moment, the zombie king broke through to the middle stage of level 5. It was a little stronger than Xiaoqing now. The base chief was really scared. His legs were weak, let alone the people who followed him. The zombie king walked over step by step until it was in front of the base chief. It raised its hand, and its sharp fingernails were like sharp blades, shining with a cold light. Chapter 347. The base chief suddenly said, Siyun, do you still remember? I gave you the ring. I was poor back then. I couldn't afford gold or silver, so I used coins. I hollowed out the center of the ring and made it look like a ring. I gave it to you. At that time, you said it was the most beautiful ring in the world. For a moment, the Zombie King was at a loss. It didn't have many memories, only a deep obsession and an inexplicable hatred. The base chief continued. At that time, everyone looked down on me. You were the only one who didn't hesitate to marry me. Our wedding was very simple. We didn't have a wedding dress, a banquet, or your favorite red rose. I cut a Chinese rose and put it in your hair. Only you and I held hands and got a marriage certificate. His eyes glistened with tears, full of affection. Do you still remember me? Do you still remember me? Just as the Zombie King was in a state of confusion, the base chief suddenly rushed over. It looked like he wanted to hug the Zombie King, but he was actually holding a dagger in his hand. He stabbed it hard into the Zombie King's chest. The skeleton of a child was still in its chest. The Zombie King, whose reverse scale had been touched, suddenly went crazy. It slapped the base chief and sent him flying. The base chief was slapped to the ground. As soon as he landed, he spat out a mouthful of blood. Then, without stopping, he turned around and rushed toward the zombies that surrounded him. He was very fast. There was a faint green light around his ankle. It turned out that he was also a superpower possessor and a wind power possessor. The Zombie King roared and was about to chase after him, but the base chief, who was running fast, was kicked back. Xiaoqing chuckled. She looked at the base chief rolling on the ground like a gourd. Then she said, "Since you love it so much, why do you still want to leave? Why don't you two catch up?" The base chief was kicked in the chest. For a moment he couldn't breathe. He looked at Xiaoqing in surprise, as if he couldn't understand why Xiaoqing did that. Xiaoqing rolled up her sleeves and continued watching the scene. She was now sure that the base chief and the Zombie King knew each other. Not only that, they were probably husband and wife. Then why did they turn against each other? Why did the Zombie King turn into a zombie? Why did both of them want to kill the base chief so badly? Xiaoqing felt that there must be a lot of secrets in this, and she really wanted to know. The Zombie King looked at Xiaoqing gratefully. It squatted down and grabbed the base chief's neck, wanting to strangle him. The base chief grabbed the Zombie King's wrist with one hand and condensed a wind blade with the other to stab the Zombie King's eyes. When the Zombie King turned its head to dodge, the base chief struggled to escape from the Zombie King's grasp. He rolled back and dodged temporarily. All of this happened in the blink of an eye. Those who came out with the base chief were stunned. What was going on? He didn't know that Xiaoqing was also very curious. First, she was sure that this base chief wasn't a good person. Would a good base chief abandon the entire base and escape through a secret passage when the base's survival was at stake? Second, he could say affectionate words to a zombie while attacking it. How could an ordinary person do that? Most importantly, what was the identity of the Zombie King? Why was it carrying the skeleton of a child to seek revenge from the base chief? Xiaoqing was really curious. She bit her nails and watched the base chief and his people run away like rats while being chased by zombies. It was like watching a show. Until Zhao Hanxing came. Zhao Hanxing saw the base chief being chased by zombies and hurried to protect him. Xiaoqing had a headache. Why did this person come again? Chapter 348. He was already injured. Shouldn't he find a place to heal? Why did he come back to seek death? If Zhao Hanxing was killed in order to save this bastard who had abandoned the entire base, it wouldn't be worth it at all. Xiaoqing calmly reached out her hand. Immediately, vines came out from under Zhao Hanxing's feet. He wasn't as strong as Xiaoqing, and he was seriously injured. He couldn't dodge at all. Soon he was entangled and dragged to Xiaoqing. "You. Let me go." Zhao Hanxing glared at Xiaoqing, gritted his teeth and said, You. He didn't know how to curse. After a long while he squeezed out a word, scum. Xiaoqing sneered, then slapped him on the head. Is your brain full of water? Why don't you think about it? Why is your great base chief here? Is this kind of person worth risking your life to protect? Zhao Hanxing was only a little straightened, but he wasn't stupid. He quickly reacted and didn't say anything for a long time. Xiaoqing hung him to the side and continued to watch the show. The zombie king approached the base chief step by step. When it was in front of the base chief, it waved its claws at him. The base chief immediately dragged a person over and used him as a shield. That man didn't even have the chance to say a word before his head was smashed by the zombie king. As soon as this man died, the base chief used the corpse as a cover to escape again. Then, in order to get out of trouble, he pushed a man next to him into the zombie crowd and watched the man being eaten by the zombies. Zhao Hanxing was stunned. He knew clearly that if Xiaoqing hadn't pulled him over, he would have been the one being used as a human shield. Was this the kind of person he had been loyal to and protecting all this time? A base chief who abandoned the whole base and ran away. A base chief who used his companions as a shield. A base chief who pushed his own men into the zombie crowd. Xiaoqing handed some biscuits to Zhao Hanxing. Do you want some to calm down? Zhao Hanxing immediately looked at her with a strange expression. In Zhao Hanxing's eyes, Xiaoqing was now a big weirdo. The bloody scene in front of her was enough to make people lose their appetite, but she was still eating biscuits. Xiaoqing stuffed the biscuit into her mouth and continued to watch the show. She firmly believed that the best part was yet to come. Xiaoqing was surrounded by vines, baring their fangs and brandishing their claws. Any zombie that accidentally got close to her would be whipped away. The base chief had been badly injured by the zombie king. As soon as he saw Xiaoqing, he couldn't help but want to divert the trouble away. This was probably the worst decision he had made tonight. He suddenly jumped up and rushed toward Xiaoqing, but before he could say or do anything, the vines came down on him and beat him up until his head was swollen like a pig's. Then he almost couldn't dodge the zombie king's attack and was beheaded. Xiaoqing smiled and said, "You want to drag me down with you? I'll give you a chance. Tell me the gossip about you and the zombie king. If I'm happy, maybe I'll save you. If I'm willing to protect you, no one here can kill you." He hesitated, but another man said without hesitation, "I'm his childhood friend. I know everything about him. If you save me, I'll tell you." Xiaoqing leisurely reached out a vine and dragged him over, then hung him up. "You can tell me now. If you lie to me, I'll throw you into the zombie crowd." The man swallowed, then glanced at the base chief. He straightened his neck and said, "He's an animal. He has a human face and a beast heart. He deserves it." Hearing that, Xiaoqing was shocked. Hey, wasn't this man his childhood friend? What a sharp comment. Chapter 349. That female zombie is his wife, Yang Suyin. She followed him when he was still a poor loser and supported him very much. She took out all her savings and salary for him to start his business. In the end, this heartless and unscrupulous person actually took the money out to gamble and even had mistresses. Once he ran out of money, he would come back to ask Yang Suyin for money. Yang Suyin did not know what he was doing outside and gave him all her money. She ate steamed buns and salted vegetables every day until Yang Suyin got pregnant. That guy finally restrained himself a little. That person took a deep breath and began to curse. A dog can't stop itself from eating shit. A few days later, he went out to cheat again. God did not have eyes. He actually did not let Yang Suyin discover that he was such a beast. Later on, when the child was a little more than 1 year old, the world ended. Didn't the television say that many people fell into a coma, and after waking up, they would turn into zombies and bite people everywhere? This beast actually threw his son down from the 6th floor. Because his son was unconscious at that time, he was worried that his son would turn into a zombie, so he threw his son down. A 1-year-old child falling from the 6th floor, other than falling to his death, is there any other way? Other than a beast, who else would do such a thing? Even a vicious tiger would not eat its cubs. The base chief's face turned red and white. He roared angrily. "Shut up." That person rolled his eyes sarcastically, then continued. "There's something even more ruthless." Yang Suyin almost went crazy at that time. She tried to go downstairs to find her son. Then she was beaten up by this beast. He locked her up and did not let her out until there was no more food in the house. Heh, guess what he did? His voice echoed in the open space. Everyone pricked up their ears. That person sneered and continued. He actually wanted to kill Yang Suyin and eat her flesh. He even regretted throwing his son down instead of killing him and putting him in the refrigerator. This is what he told me personally. Young Soo-yin jumped down from the 6th floor in a fit of madness. She was probably bitten by a zombie, so she came back to take revenge. Tui, I think he deserved it. When this person said those words, not to mention Xiaoqing, even the people who were with the base chief could not help but stay away from him. Killing one's son and eating one's wife. How crazy was this person to do such a thing? Zhao Hansheng was an honest person. He struggled and said, "Let me go. I want to kill him." Xiaoqing could not help but slap him. She sneered. "You just risked your life to protect him, and now you want to kill him? You'd better squat here obediently." After slapping Zhao Hansheng, Xiaoqing patted the man who spoke. She smiled and said, "Very good, very cooperative. You are safe now." Then the vine carried him all the way out of the zombie encirclement. She finally threw him aside. That person was stunned at first. Then he was pleasantly surprised. He thanked her repeatedly, then spat at the base chief's position. He then walked in the direction of the base. After sending that person away, Xiaoqing said to the zombie king, "I will not stop you from taking revenge, but after taking your revenge, leave this place. Those people in the base are innocent after all." The zombie king already had some consciousness. It let out a low howl in response to Xiaoqing, then looked at the base chief. The base chief still wanted to run, but his legs were bound by Xiaoqing's vines. After being bound, he did not even have the chance to run. He could only watch helplessly as the zombie king walked over and grabbed his neck. Its face was filled with deep hatred. He struggled for a while, and a cracking sound came from his throat. Soon, his eyes were about to fall out of their sockets. This was because a hand had pierced into his chest, probing and stirring inside before finally grabbing onto a piece of flesh that was still pulsating. That was his heart. Chapter 350. Perhaps it had once questioned whether his heart was black or not. It had also once thought of swallowing him alive. But in the end, the zombie king only crushed the beating heart into minced meat. He threw the corpse that had lost its heart into the zombie crowd and let the zombies eat it. The zombie king covered its chest and watched silently. Only when the corpse was left with only bones and bits of flesh on the bones did it let out a roar. Those zombies who had received the order retreated like the tide, scattering until they could no longer be seen. Only the zombie king was left in a daze. At the moment when it got its revenge, it didn't feel happy or sad, only confused. It suddenly recalled some scenes in its mind. It fell from a tall building. It didn't know if it was lucky or unlucky. It fell into a flower bed and broke its leg. It couldn't tell where it was, and then it was bitten by a zombie. After it became a zombie, it wandered around with many zombies, eating people and its own kind. In the end, it became the top group of its kind. It seemed to have remembered something and returned to the first floor where it fell. From the layers of bones, it picked up a skeleton that had been eaten clean, leaving only the bones. When it was windy and rainy, it would hide in some abandoned houses with the skeleton. When it was in a fight, it would carefully protect the skeleton. Even if it was injured, it wouldn't let the skeleton be damaged. For this reason, it was seriously injured several times. Because of this, it learned to hide in the dark and wait for both sides to be injured. Then it would go out and pick up the ready-made ones. It remembered that it had enemies, people that it hated to the core. But now its enemies were dead. They died without an intact body. It didn't know what to do next. Nowhere to go. Xiaoqing lifted the zombie king's chin and carefully observed its neck. It was badly rotten. It should be the wound where the zombie first bit it. The zombie king was highly vigilant towards its own kind. But it was grateful to Xiaoqing. It looked at Xiaoqing confusedly. Xiaoqing said to it seriously, "Go south. There is a place called Jiang City. My friends are all there. It's a good place to settle down. If you don't have a place to go, you can go to Jiang City." The zombie king roared gratefully, then took his monkey-like brothers and left with the other zombies. Zhao Hansheng was still hanging there. He was a little confused. The zombie siege that troubled them was solved just like that? Just a second ago, he was still holding on to the hope that even if he were to die, he would die before the base was breached. But in the next second, all the zombies retreated. It was like a dream. He couldn't even tell whether it was a dream when the zombies surrounded the city, or now that the zombies had dispersed, it was a dream. Xiaoqing retracted the vines and said to Zhao Hanxing and the others, "The crisis is over. You can return to the city. The only problem is that we need to choose a new chief." The remaining group of people expressed that even if the original base chief was still alive, they would not let such a beast in human skin be the base chief again. It was time to select a new base chief. All eyes were on Zhao Hanxing. Zhao Hanxing was still confused. He stared at Xiaoqing's back as she left. His heart was filled with indescribable disappointment and a feeling that he couldn't explain. She was a very magical girl. He had never seen such a woman. She was strong, mysterious, independent. Even her beauty was beautiful and sharp. He probably wouldn't see her again. Zhao Hanxing rubbed his chest. That strange feeling lingered in his heart and refused to go away. Chapter 351. On the other side, Xiaoqing had met up with her friends. Qin Zishi had big dark circles under his eyes. It was obvious that he hadn't slept well. It was only when Xiaoqing came back that he heaved a sigh of relief and looked at Xiaoqing with a very bitter expression. Xiaoqing hurriedly explained the general situation to everyone, causing a few of her companions to be very angry. At the end of the world, when the law no longer played its role, the demons that had been suppressed in the hearts of some people for a long time were released. When the shackles of morality and the shackles of the law were no longer effective, some people would become unscrupulous, disregarding the law, and becoming deranged. Since the problem was solved, they had to go back as soon as possible. Otherwise, Gu Ning and Gu Ning might arrive with reinforcements on their way back. Therefore, Qin Zishi asked his friends to find a pack of mutant wolves. He rode on a mutant wolf and rushed back. When they arrived at the gate of the capital, Qin Zishi had just released the pack of mutant wolves when he saw his father walking out with reinforcements. If they had come a little later, they might have missed each other. It was too much of a coincidence. His father was struck dumb when he saw them coming back. He asked, "What happened? Is the battle over? Is the base broken? Why did you come back?" Qin Zishi had no choice but to repeat what Xiaoqing had said yesterday. She then said, "We were worried that the reinforcements would leave too quickly, and that I would be too slow to return. It would be easy to meet the reinforcements on the way back, and the reinforcements would have made a wasted trip, so we sped up our return." His father didn't know that the siege of the city was over until now. At this moment he looked at Xiaoqing in a different way. No matter what, Xiaoqing was brave and resourceful, since she dared to investigate alone and succeeded. "Since it's done, you can come back now," his father said calmly. Father Qin said calmly. This was the first task he had given Qin Zishi, and it was beyond his expectations that she would complete it so well. Mr. Qin actually wanted to praise Qin Zishi, but firstly, he was too shy to say it out loud. Secondly, he was not familiar with the business and was a little stuck. Thirdly, he was afraid that Qin Zishi would be proud. Hence, Mr. Qin cleared his throat for a long time and finally said, "Go back and rest. The journey was quite tiring." Qin Zishi responded expressionlessly and led her friends inside. Xiaoqing could tell that Mr. Qin cared a lot about Qin Zishi. Otherwise, he wouldn't have rushed out with his friends the moment he received news that the Gu siblings were back. A general who came from a military family had his collar button crooked when he led his troops out. How impatient was he? This pair of father and son clearly cared about each other, and cared a lot about each other, but they refused to say anything. They would rather have a cold war than express their inner thoughts. Xiaoqing felt tired for them. After entering the capital, they relaxed. Although there was only one adventure, the others who waited outside didn't have an easy time either. Everyone was so worried that they couldn't sleep well at all. Once they were back in the capital, they felt safe and relaxed. However, the moment they arrived at the gate of the Qin family's house, they saw Master Qin walking out with several people in a panic. Seeing Xiaoqing, Master Qin couldn't control himself and immediately said, "The baby is missing." Master Qin had been looking after the little bun these days. He usually took the little bun to play. Occasionally, when the little bun ran to the gate to play by himself, There must be people secretly protecting him. Therefore, Master Qin was quite relieved. Chapter 352. But today, Little Bun said he wanted to play with a ball at the door. Grandpa Qin was busy dealing with the strange fog Xiao Qing had given them, so he arranged for a few superpowered people to secretly protect Little Bun. But at lunchtime, Grandpa Qin realized that Little Bun hadn't come back. He went to the door to call him personally, but then he realized that Little Bun was gone. He was shocked. He couldn't get in touch with Little Bun's bodyguards, so he hurriedly ordered the nannies and bodyguards to search everywhere. In the end, he found the bodies of several bodyguards in a corner. The wounds on the bodies were clean. It was obvious that they had been killed with one stab. He couldn't tell what kind of superpowered person had done it. Grandpa Qin's hands and feet turned cold, and he almost fainted. He really doted on Little Bun like he was his grandson. Now that Little Bun had suddenly disappeared and his bodyguards were dead, even though he was used to seeing countless storms and waves, and had been able to hold his own in the political world for a long time, he was now an ordinary old man in a panic. Just as Grandpa Qin organized his men to search for Little Bun, Xiao Qing finally came back. As soon as Xiao Qing heard that the Little Bun was missing, her vision went dark. She had originally thought that the capital was safer, so she had left the Little Bun behind. In the end, the Little Bun had disappeared within a few days. Her heart, which hadn't beat since she came back from the dead, seemed to be trembling at this moment. She grabbed the arm of the person beside her tightly and lowered her voice, trying to make it sound less shaky. Go and find him. Even if you have to turn the entire capital upside down, you have to find my son. Yin Chiyue was in pain from Xiao Qing's grip, but she still comforted Xiao Qing softly. It'll be fine. Jingdu is only so big, so it's easy to find him. Those people must have caught Little Bun to target you, so they won't easily hurt him. Plus, Little Bun is not completely defenseless. Don't worry. Xiao Qing couldn't hear a word of comfort. Her mind was filled with searching. Grandpa Qin and Father Qin hurriedly gave the order and mobilized all their men. As she looked around, a person suddenly flashed across Xiao Qing's mind. Lin Qifan. For the past few days, Lin Qifan must have come to look for Little Bun frequently. Before he disappeared, Little Bun said that he wanted to play ball with someone at the door. It was very likely that this person was Lin Qifan, the person who kidnapped Little Bun. Xiao Qing told her friends about this conjecture, and they split into several groups. Each group brought along a person who was familiar with Jingdu. And then they split up to look for the women related to Lin Qifan. If she found Lin Qifan, she might be able to find the Little Bun. Xiao Qing, Yin Chiyue, and Dai were in a group. They brought along a person who was familiar with Jingdu, and went to find Lu Xian. When they came to Jingdu this time, they saw Lu Xian and Lin Qifan together. She was jealous of Lin Qifan, and almost killed a pair of siblings. She should know where Lin Qifan is, right? At this moment, Lu Xian was having fun with her group of bad friends. Xiao Qing kicked open the door, giving her a fright. When she saw that it was Xiao Qing, she was shocked again. But this time, Qin Zishi wasn't there, so she breathed a sigh of relief. Without seeing Qin Zishi, Lu Xian became much bolder. In addition, she had many friends to support her. She immediately slammed the table and said, "What do you want? This is my house. You're trespassing. Even if I beat you to death here, it's self-defense. Do you understand?" How could Xiao Qing have the time to listen to her blabbering? She immediately pulled out her military knife and nailed it to the table. "I'll ask you 2 questions. Answer me truthfully, or I'll gouge your eyes out." Chapter 353. Xiao Qing's voice was flat, as if it wasn't threatening at all. However, Lu Xian shuddered. But then, she felt that being threatened by Xiao Qing in front of all her friends was very embarrassing. She straightened her neck and said, "I'll say whatever you want me to say. Who do you think you are?" In fact, her words were already showing her weakness. However, Xiao Qing wasn't in the mood to talk to her. She held the military knife and directly stabbed it into the back of Lu Xian's hand, nailing her hand to the table. Lu Xian screamed in pain. Her friends wanted to help, but Xiao Qing whipped them into rolling gourds on the floor. I'm not in the mood to talk nonsense with you. I'll give you two choices. First, tell me where Lin Qifan lives and where he is now. Second, let me kill you. Lu Xian was in so much pain that she kept sucking in cold air. However, she knew that Xiaoqing wasn't lying. If she really refused again, Xiaoqing would really dare to dig her eyes out and step on them like a light bulb. Lu Xian hurriedly said, Lin Qifan lives in the west of the city. He has a small villa. The address is... After she told her the address, Xiaoqing calmly pulled out the military knife. She didn't even wipe the blood off and hurriedly led her people to the place she told her. Lu Xian still liked Lin Qifan. As soon as Xiaoqing left, she tried to call Lin Qifan, but it didn't go through. On the other side, Xiaoqing had already arrived at Lin Qifan's place. She violently broke the door. The three of them searched the entire villa, but they didn't see Lin Qifan. Her face couldn't help but become gloomy, and she became more and more anxious. Yan Qiyu hurriedly comforted her. Let's go back to the Qin family first. What if there's news? What if they've already found him? Although she knew that the chances were slim, Xiaoqing still nodded and walked back. Erdai didn't know how to speak, so she pulled on Yan Qiyue's sleeve and asked her to comfort Xiaoqing. Yan Qiyue said, Qing, you have to think positively. No matter what the person who took the baby away was thinking, he wouldn't hurt the baby. He definitely wanted to use the baby to exchange for something from us. Plus, the baby has a superpower. He's young, so he won't be guarded. With Yiya's protection, nothing bad will happen to him. Yiya. Xiaoqing's eyes brightened. She hurriedly sped up. Let's go. The two people were confused, but they still hurriedly followed Xiaoqing. Xiaoqing's heart was filled with joy. How could she forget Yi? Yiya's intelligence wasn't inferior to the average person's. Since she hadn't found Yiya at the scene of the little bun's disappearance, it meant that Yiya was most likely with the little bun. When they returned, there was still no news of the little bun. Xiaoqing walked around the last spot where the little bun was last seen before he disappeared. Her efforts paid off. She finally found something. It was a tuft of rabbit fur. This tuft of rabbit fur was in the place where the little bun often played with a ball. Those who didn't know better would think that Yiya had dropped it when she was picking up a ball. The rabbit fur was facing west. Xiaoqing immediately said, This is most likely left by Yiya. Let's go. They walked all the way to the west. After walking for a long time, they indeed saw another tuft of rabbit fur in a corner. The rabbit fur was facing west. This time, they could confirm that Yiya had deliberately left it behind. Xiaoqing followed the markings left by Yiya. The little bun was in a daze. He was locked up in a small dark room with only Yiya in his arms to keep him company. After his captors left, the little bun secretly got up from the ground. He stood on his tiptoes and tried to look out the window. However, the window was too high and he couldn't reach it. Chapter 354. Little Bun was a little discouraged. He lowered his head and played with Yiya in his arms, saying in a low voice, When will Mama come back? Mama will be very worried when she finds out that I'm gone. Yiya shrank back. When will Mama come and save us? After nagging for a while, the little bun sighed and began to play with Yiya. Yiya's face was swollen, and it could not help but roll its eyes. It had left evidence for Xiaoqing, so it had to bear the pain of plucking its fur. If Xiaoqing did not find the evidence it left behind, things would be bad. If Xiaoqing found it, she would definitely be able to find them. Yiya gritted its teeth and thought that it had contributed a lot of hair this time. When it plucked the hair, it was very distressed. When Xiaoqing found them, it must ask Xiaoqing for a lot of carrots to make up for the hair it had plucked. After Little Bun was captured, he was locked in a small dark room. There seemed to be people who had captured him. Little Bun was very smart. He did not want to sit there and wait for death, so he began to look around. The small dark room was empty. There was nothing, not even a light. There was only a door and a window. He jumped and looked outside through the window. He saw a lot of metal and other things piled up outside. Some of them were rusty. Little Bun jumped and jumped, taking in everything outside. It seemed to be a very old factory, and there were many rusty steel bars and other things piled up on the ground. The window was very small, so he could not see anything else. Outside, a few people were sitting in a circle. Lin Qifan was like a lackey, pouring water for everyone. He had always wanted to use Little Bun to change Xiaoqing. He had always believed that Xiaoqing still had some feelings for him. After all, a day together as husband and wife meant 100 days of love. 100 days together as husband and wife meant 100 days of love. As long as Xiaoqing was willing to forgive him, everything would be fine. His life would be better in the future. Then, a group of people came to Xiaoqing. They were very strong. And any one of them was stronger than the strongest paranormals Lin Qifan had ever met. They went straight to the point and asked Lin Qifan to cooperate with them to capture Little Bun and use him to threaten Xiaoqing. After the job was done, he would give him enough crystals and food to live for the rest of his life, and let him go far away. Lin Qifan was moved. The reason why he wanted to win Xiaoqing's forgiveness was so that he could live a good life in the future. And the things that these people had promised him were too tempting. With these food and crystals, he could find a small base and live the rest of his life like a tyrant. Therefore, after Lin Qifan confirmed that they indeed had the financial resources, he decisively agreed. After he agreed, those people told him their plan. They wanted to use the Little Bun to lure Xiaoqing over and kill her. Lin Qifan only hesitated for a moment, then decisively cooperated with them to capture Little Bun. After all, it was not the first time that he had betrayed Xiaoqing. Therefore, Lin Qifan immediately took those people to the Qin family's gate and captured Little Bun. While they were capturing Little Bun, those people attacked Little Bun's bodyguards. Seeing how strong they were, Lin Qifan felt a lot more at ease. As long as Xiaoqing was dead, no one would take revenge on him, and he could live a good life in peace. When should we send the message? A burly man asked in a low, muffled voice. Another skinny man immediately said, I thought it would take Xiaoqing a long time to get the message that her son is missing. I didn't expect her to come back so early. But it's not a big deal. Let's wait for a while. When the sky is slightly dark, we can make our move. Skinny man is right. When the time comes, we will stuff the letter under the Qin family's gate. Xiaoqing will definitely come over when she hears the news. She dotes on her son so much. When the time comes, we will take the opportunity to kill her. After completing the mission, we will quickly retreat. The man sitting in the middle said gloomily. Lin Qifan could not help but swallow his saliva when he heard that. It was not because he felt guilty, but because he was fantasizing about how happy he could live after obtaining those things. You're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.